Is
All
live
right,
then. Alright.
we are live now. Um, how are you? Because it's like it's weird starting these without Keenan. It's always weird starting these without Keenan because like he has his own spiel and everything.
He has some energy that I don't know how
Yeah, I don't know how he
possesses,
gets it. He
basically.
he has he has to be mad in his head. But as everyone can probably see, he's not here this week. It's just gonna be me and William here. We're gonna do our own thing. We're gonna talk about EOS. We're gonna talk about some of the past races here, and we're gonna let Keenan do his thing. I don't even know what he's doing. Some
We can
races in
go
America.
we can go on as many tangents as we can because no one's stopping us.
Exactly. Yeah, no one's stopping us. All right. So let's get going and drop that intro.
Nitro is the glory, but e-buggy pays the bills. Welcome to the No Name RC podcast. Get ready for some serious bench racing. But be warned, we speak our minds, express our thoughts, and sometimes things can get a little rowdy.
Hate, and he just was influenced by the hate coming from the left, the hate coming from the right. And let's get back to more club racing and less of this racing.
It's hard not to be arrogant when you're always right. You know?
See what I mean? That's exactly why people call you arrogant nuts.
You may not agree with everything we say, but it's definitely worth a listen.
And our pick, can you stop whatever you're doing?
Join your host, Leslie the Great, with co-hosts and guests as they get together to chat RC.
Hey, after that race that I watched this morning, I have to talk about it.
Here we go. $100 right here, $100 bill. Oh no!
I like this.
All right, what's up, everybody? It's episode 308. That's a lot of episodes. But it's just the second episode I think ever where Keenan is not present. So it is still a bit of a special one. It's still a bit of a new thing. But we did actually get pretty good feedback from the first show. It was only the technical side that was kind of screwing us up back then. But I think we got it. I
I
think we
think
got
I
it.
think it was fine, to be fair. Like, I mean, we were a bit more technical than normal, but you know what? I think that's what everyone wants to hear anyway, so I think it was a win.
Yeah, yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it for sure. Um, but that being said, even though Keenan's not here, one thing changes. One thing stays constant, and that is that before we start, we have to pay some bills. And this show, this year, is brought to you by J Concept, our new tile sponsor. Thank you to J Concept for all the support this year. And as you guys probably saw, the first INS show dropped. I'm assuming it'll be last week from this podcast release, or then this week. I don't really know. But the first INS podcast dropped. Where you was actually present. So
Yeah,
please
yeah,
go
it
check
was. It
that
was a
out.
it was a really good opportunity to interview Jason because he has a wealth of knowledge. So anyone that's listening to this, I highly recommend you guys listen to that episode because Jason went into a lot of details about basically everything we asked him. So he did not disappoint. And yeah, anyone doing the INS series, there's a lot of like info there. So everyone go and watch it.
Yeah, and there'll be one podcast from I believe every single preview of every single race this year. That's gonna be INS race this year. So definitely a show to look out for on top of our regular sketches programming. All right, let's continue to our premium sponsors that are High Tech RC, Sidewinder Fuels, Latera Racing, Invisible Speed, ML Toys, and Side Piece Racing. Big thanks to these guys that have been some have been longtime supporters and some new, but are very eager to be part of our project, and we thank you guys for that. Um, and then our other sponsors, Hot Race Tires, Elite RC Productions, RC Project, Mayako, Techno RC, Beach RC, Racecraft USA, and Clinic RC. Big thanks to you guys as well. Lots of long-time supporters there as well, and great to see people on board. Then a few shout-outs. Our official no-name RC drivers, David Ronnefalk, Robert Batte, Alexander Hagberg, Matty G, Pekka and Jona, and then Mason Fuller. We still have to get Caden. Caden, I don't know why we only have Mason, but thanks to those guys, they have been supporters of the show for a while, and we always root on them for the track. And last but definitely not least, thank you to every single one of you who support our Patreon, get the YouTube membership, donate on the YouTube. I'll give super chats or whatever it's called on the YouTube videos. Big thanks to you guys. You make Keenan's life much better. He doesn't have to only eat the bananas that happen to drop on his yacht. He can actually go to the store and buy food for himself. So yeah, we don't have any happy birthdays or shout outs or friends of the show this week. So um that's it. But again, thanks to everyone who support us. And yeah, I think we should get cracking. And before we get talking about all the little chit chat of this week, we're gonna play an advertisement for our new, well, it's still new, title sponsor J Concept. So take a look. Thank you to J Concepts once again, and we're happy to be partnering up with them this year. So Keenan's gone, as we stated. I believe I don't know if Beast of the East was this weekend. I think INS is like, well, I don't know when this is getting released again. So INS could be this weekend, INS could be last weekend. But he's doing some announcing, I guess. I think that's what she's doing. So I'm behind the wheel. I'm sort of the master of the show now. I'm trying to not get too dictatorial, and I think we're a good pairing because it's like me and Keenan. He wants to get his word in. I want to get my word in, but I think me and you, we have kind of a natural balance going. I do get on my tangents, but I usually see from your face that I'm talking too long, and then I know how to stop.
Well, I feel like
And
since you've been restricted so much, I may as well just let you loose. Just just let you say whatever you want. So
yeah,
it's like the one time you get freedom, basically.
yeah. But then we have to be careful. If I get too used to it, then I might not want to do a podcast with Keenan anymore. To be honest, it's fun, so probably will never happen. But yeah, this week though, I think you'll have a lot to tell because you actually went to this race. You actually went to EOS, which you're going to talk about on this podcast. So yeah, briefly, like tell about your trip a bit.
Yeah, I mean, for an EOS, it was definitely one of the longer races I've probably been to. In previous years, it was the actual racing starts from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But last year they made it where like Thursday was kind of a free practice day, obviously still in heat order, but they basically it wasn't like you had to do it, but if you didn't do it, you only had one round of practice for two wheel on the Friday. But this time they made it that two wheel started from Saturday. So I think by the end of Saturday, I think we completed all rounds of qualifying and the practice, or maybe there was one round in the morning, but I actually can't remember. But it's a really long schedule from what we're kind of used to. So every day, like basically up at 6 a.m. and like finishing by 10, 11. So pretty much standard dawn practice, to be honest with you. Really long days.
Yeah.
But it was really good fun. I think the Racer Poland guys did a fantastic job with the track. I think it was really nice to be fair, in the last 2 years, they've done really good tracks, but this year seemed like, especially that small, I don't want to call it a roller because it's not really a roller, but that roller into the double in front of the rostrum was a really cool feature, and they had lots of jumps. Because I really think in Europe, we really need tracks with more jumps, kind of like more US style. So it's kind of good to see that they really elevated that. So overall, I think it was like initially it was a really good event, but of course we're gonna dive into the nitty gritty of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that is a good point to raise, like, back in the day when I used to start going abroad, these European races used to be like first round at 9 and you'll be like back at your hotel by 7 p.m. But I don't know when the change happened, but these days feels like it's from dusk till dawn. It's like oh wait, the other way around, from dawn till
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't know.
especially
But
yeah, especially Dawn. It just I think because they get so many entries. Like
yeah.
obviously before, like when they had the series, Dawn was kind of the later rounds where I guess it was in the new year, so people would do it. But like I agree with you. Like when I did the whole series one year when it was in like Warsaw and the Nurburgring and stuff. Yeah, it was really relaxed. You had like almost 5 rounds of practice, and then like you'd finish by like 6 every day. So yeah, it was nice that you kind of had a chance to go out and get dinner and socialize. But this time round, it was basically like you had to go get dinner in between rounds and so
Yeah.
on. So it was
Yeah.
pretty long days. But I mean, it's kind of what the EOS, I guess, Dawn has always been. But I guess you could say now in this case, it's what EOS is.
Yeah, yeah, man, I think that is kind of the thing that when you only have one run of EOS, people are gonna be like, "Well, I'll at least go to that one," and then there's gonna be 400 people, or I don't even know how many
Mm.
people there actually were, but there was a lot of people. Like, I think Mod Tool Drive had like over 100 entries, and Stock Tool Drive had over 100 entries. So it was close to 300 Tool Drive cars running there, which is insane. Um, yeah, and I actually checked on our notes right now. We're supposed to do news, but we we completely forgot any news. Um, so I don't know if we're gonna do any of that. We might as well save it until late. Um, and I think we probably should dive into our past races that happened before the EOS, because there has been a few races that we missed since we did our last podcast with Keenan, and so yeah, I think we'll move on to that. And so past races are brought to you by Side Piece Racing and Latera Racing. So elevate your RC experience with SidePieceRacing.com, North America's exclusive distributor for top tier brands like Automatics, Roche, Wild Turbofan, Montec Racing, Corsetec, Phoenix Racing, and Will Speed. Whether you're seeking precision engineered cars, kits, high performance batteries, or aerodynamic bodies, we got you covered. Enjoy fast shipping and exceptional customer service, ensuring you get the best gear when you need it. Visit sidepiece.racing.com today and race ahead of the competition. Sidepiece Racing, big distributor in America, especially focused on road side of things. And then to our other sponsor, big distributor in Europe, is Latera Racing. Step up your RC racing with Latera Racing, one of Sweden's premier hobby shops and track dedicated to racers. Featuring top brands like X-Ray, Hobbywing, Zoo Racing, Team Coyote, we provide everything you need from precision chassis to high performance electronics. Whether you're at the track or upgrading your setup, Latera Racing caters to racers who demand the best. Visit latera.se or stop by our shop and track for the ultimate RC experience. Latera Racing, built for winners. Thank you to both Sidepiece Racing and Latera Racing, and be sure to check out both shops depending on which continent you are at. And yeah, now let's move on to the past races. So obviously, usually when it's Daun, like the place Daun, not Dawn. It's ETS first, and then the following weekend it's EOS, and it was the case this time as well. Um, Probably there would be as much to talk about the ETS, but we have limited time, and we chose EOS this time around. Um, but I think this ETS was especially interesting because it was post Worlds. Um, Everybody's kind of got their new car dialed in. A lot of guys running the new RC Maker chassis, and then it is still kind of the first big race of the year for the on-road guys. Um, and again, Orlowski was dominant. I don't think that comes as a surprise to anyone really. Um, but I think the big surprise was how strong Mugen was. I don't know how much you actually followed this race, but usually Mugen has kind of been like, okay, Ronald can be fast. He's usually like maybe a third or a fourth or a fifth or something. But here she was actually challenging Michal for the win. And what's even more interesting was the stock or spec results. So in the spec class, we had Søren Sparbier, who I don't think anyone really knows. I don't really know this guy, but the thing about him
No,
is
neither do I.
he's rather young and he's a Mugen driver. This was the first ever spec class win for Mugen at ETS, and that is
Yeah,
a
like
big
it kind
deal.
of. Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I mean, I do follow ETS a little bit. I was at the Luxembourg EOS with RCTV, so I actually got to experience it all myself. But yeah, like I think traditionally, like Mugen, they came into the touring car scene. It looks like they're kind of expanding, especially now into 10 scale as well. So I think like, I mean, they got Ronald, I'm assuming, to kind of help develop that platform. And it looks like, I think the second generation was, the first generation, obviously the first generation. Like I think Volker got it round pretty well. Second generation got better. And it looks like now, Volker and the Mugen team are really getting somewhere with it. I could see when I was watching the EDA finals, Volker was just right behind Orlowski, but just couldn't really find a way past. Like it was basically a freight train with obviously, of course, we'll get into the finals, but it was a freight train with Michael, Volker, and Reinhard. And yeah, this I don't. I mean, I don't know if I saw. I'm going to absolutely butcher the name here, but I'm guessing Soren. Is that how you say it? I'm not sure, but like,
Yeah, I think
I
so.
did.
Yes.
Yeah, like I didn't see him at the last ETS unless I just didn't know who he was. And if you're listening to this, sorry, mate. But like, yeah, he kind of came out of nowhere because I know the guy that won the spec worlds. I don't know if he's doing spec anymore or if he did spec at this race, but I know Adam Izay, he's been really quick in spec in the last kind of few years. So, but basically, yeah,
Yeah.
this guy, I don't really know. And he just kind of came out of nowhere. So maybe does that mean that Mugen have found something in the touring car scene that maybe could battle the MI9 platform? Because that's kind of seems to be I don't want to say the platform to have, but I guess you could say it's a really good car at the moment.
No, I mean, I think it's totally the platform to have. I think if you ask anyone what is the best touring car overall across like asphalt and carpet and different like type of surfaces, I think almost anyone would say that the Schumacher platform is the best. Um, and I think that is sort of the shared consensus. But also, obviously, automatics is great. I think that's sort of the benchmark in a lot of ways. But at the moment, I feel like Schumacher has got a bit of an edge um, in the way they got the car balanced. Um, but in the worlds, we saw, I think his name was Jonathan Cruz, who made the A final. American racer, touring car racer, running Mugen. I think he was 15 or 17, really young, either way. Um, and making the A final at Touring Car Worlds. I think that alone is a great thing. But now again, sure, it's a spec class, but I'd say the spec class is more competitive than the modified class in a lot of ways. You get much more like flukes in the modified class than you do get in the spec class. And having another young driver, this sort of a great result, it is I think it's even a more impressive sign for the brand as like Volker finishes second at the same time. And like people might be like, okay, it's a spec class. Well, the guy who finished second in the spec class, Adam Issei, who is sort of the title favorite, he's basically the guy who is leading X-rays charge in the spec class in on road. I'd say around the world. Um, Adam Issei, he finished second here. He's most likely going to become the champion in spec. I'm not entirely sure if he managed to do that last year. But either way, that's definitely his number one goal. So he finished second, and Ellerbrock finished third.
Mm.
Now,
Also,
just
no,
just so you,
Adam did finish. He did finish fifth in modified as well. Sorry, I just thought it was worth
exactly, yeah,
mentioning that.
that's what I was coming into next. So if people think, oh, it's just spec, well, Adam finished fifth in modified. Dominic Greiner, who made the A final in modified, finished fourth in spec, and he actually, I don't know if he managed to make the. He finished fourth in spec and seventh in modified, and then the guy who finished third in spec, Lucas Ellerbrock, he finished 11th in modified, so last of the A final, but still in the A final. So if we look at this top four of spec, everyone except for Søren was in the A final in modified. So I mean, the level in spec is incredible. So just that's why I wanted to really pinpoint this win, because it is a big, big win for Mugen. And for this guy, obviously, Søren, for him. But for Mugen, I think marketing wise, this is a very, very big move.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah, but also I kind of feel like as well, on-road is kind of getting a lot more momentum recently. Especially, it's kind of coming. It's kind of made a comeback. Not saying that it wasn't there before, but I can see now like ETS is as busy as ever. And I know, for example, Michael. I mean, maybe this is just Michael, but there's like he does way more racing for touring car than he does for off-road. And I know this will unlock a whole another tangent in itself with off-road racing in Europe as in 10 scale. But like, it just seems like on-road, there's just so many more events now going on compared to 10th off-road. Like 10th off-road now, you only really have EOS, Euros, and then, I mean, you could argue MKGP, but it's kind of pretty limited, to be honest, other than that, and obviously Worlds.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I put MKGP definitely on that list, and there are some other races which are somewhat big. They are like the Meebo Cup. There was quite a big field last year. So there definitely are races in 10 scale, but it's much more scattered than it used to be. And that it's not like EOS back in the day when you ran it, or like in 2019, I think. And then when I in 2017, it was like everyone went to every single round. And there was like, like the top 10 was always like full of the same guys. It was like actually as close to a professional series as you could get. Um, and now it has kind of switched around. With okay, ETS has always been strong, but I think ETS has become that sort of a peak class. That it, in my opinion, from my point of view, like EOS was in the day. But moving on to modified, so we don't I'm cutting this tangent. I'm being exceeded here. But moving on to modified, I do want to point out that Orlowski still won. So even though we was praising Mugen and all that, there was still, Pekka made the main with the Schumacher, and Orlowski still won with the Schumacher. So they're definitely doing good. Uh, Still, as we said, Welker in second, and Reinhardt in third. It seems like these three are establishing themselves as the top three currently. Obviously, Bruno definitely into like he's there. I mean, I would add Bruno there, and then it would be a top four. But at the Worlds, these three were there. Bruno was there, and like those four are the ones who are really fast. Um, Behind them, Simon Lotter. He is a kind of a I don't know how would I say, he kind of goes under the radar, but he's always really strong with automatics. Then obviously Adam Issei, as we said, the lone Yokomo driver, Christopher Cup in the main, then Dominic Greiner in with Serpent, and then Lucas Urbain. Lucas is actually a paid driver by Automatics, and he had a really strong year, I think in 2023, and then he got put onto the pro team for 2024. But he's been kind of up and down, and I feel like Simon Lauter and some of these other automatic like drivers have been sort of beating him at times. So there must be some internal battle for the position. And then going into the end, and why I really wanted to go through all these guys is to show you how many different brands there are. Because Yannick Krumpe finished 9th with the RC Maker car. And I think this is actually a great showing that like you can pretty much have any of these modern cars and do well. I think
Yeah,
that is crazy in and of itself.
yeah, definitely. I mean, my not to be biased here, but my curiosity would be when the associated car comes out. Like, will that be competitive with along with these guys? I mean, the RC Maker, I know it's designed by. I don't know if it's the one guy, or I don't know if he had help, but obviously it's still a very impressive car. And what the guy is done, I believe it's from Australia or New Zealand. I'm
Yeah,
really sorry if
yeah,
I
Ryan,
butchered that.
yeah, Ryan Maker
Ryan
from
Maker.
Australia.
Yeah, yeah, that's the guy. So like, I mean, it's really impressive. And obviously like he's got Yannick on there, which obviously he's a very good driver. Like I believe he's made World's A finals, so and obviously he's here in the A final at
Yeah,
ETS, so he's clearly very capable. So yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I mean, it's quite weird to see if I'm not wrong in that I'm just trying to actually I was just there now, but there was no well other than Adam, there was no other X-rays in the
yeah,
A final. Because I know traditionally the X-ray touring car has been the one, basically the car to have. It was kind of similar to like the XB4, like that basically was for
yeah,
years
yeah.
the car to have. So I don't know. I mean, I know of course Bruno doesn't do, and this is another question for later. But like I know Bruno in years like he was the guy running X-ray. So now I don't know. Is anyone else like I know Alexander wasn't here. I'm not exactly sure. Hagberg, I'm not sure why, but
Well, I mean, I don't know if this still stands because it's weird because they kind of send out some of these guys. So they send out, for example, Zaleski, he goes to EOS, Ronnefalk goes to EOS, and then like um Adam Issei goes to ETS. So I don't really know if this still stands, but there was a point where at least I know Bruno got really into a fight with the Reinhardt family, who obviously runs the ETS and the US. And I understood that it was kind of like, I don't know if it was him only or X-Ray as well, but they definitely had sort of a beef with together, the Reinhardts and the Hoodies and their crew. And I think that's why, because it's been a while that Alexander and Bruno have been going to ETS. So I think they stopped going like in 2024. Um, and EOS similar story, so they stopped sending their guys there. I don't know if it still stands now that Bruno's gone. Maybe not. Maybe Alex has something else. Who knows? But uh, there is definitely some little, beef there. I don't know beef, but
yeah, I guess you could call. I mean, as far as I'm aware, I think they sorted it out. But I guess you could argue there's still something there. But I guess the other thing is now that Bruno isn't X-Ray's Infinity, does that mean it's on a personal level? But I mean, the other thing what I was thinking obviously, I mean, I know the whole idea of Bruno going X-Ray is, I assume, to redevelop their car and platform, which gives. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, understand a guy that owns Infinity isn't short of money, if you know where I'm coming from. So it's a great opportunity. Not saying that's the only reason, but I can imagine if you have someone that's going to be able to help you fund your idea, that's fantastic. Like it's a no-brainer. So I wonder if I was quite curious if Bruno was going to come, or if he'll come to any of the EOSs, or if it's just still the same thing, or if maybe they want to Bruno wants to get used to the cars and maybe start throwing
yeah,
their
I
ideas into that car before they go into competitions like ETS.
yeah, I'm actually I cannot confirm 100%, but from my understanding, they are actually in Thailand testing for TITC. I don't know if they're in Indonesia or where they are specifically, but I did see some picture where it was him and Naoto running the car. Um, and I did see some videos from some testing where they was in the pits. Um, so I assume he was somewhere in Asia. And I know for a fact that TITC is one of those events that people go a week before just to test because the track's open all the way up till the event. So I think their goal is to start with a bang at TITC in Thailand, and I think that's why he skipped the ETS. I do still think that he might not be going to ETSs because I know from the rumors around that he definitely has something against the Reinhardts on a personal level, or at least has had, because of how it went with Mark a few years back with a few races. There were some, well, let's say, I don't know if it was, I can't say there was takeouts because there really wasn't takeouts, but they got together a few times at ETS, and after that there was some. I know from both sides, like the automatic side and the X-ray side, there was a lot of team beef, and I think Bruno kind of got tired of that. But that was a while ago. That was almost 2 years ago now. So maybe that's gone. Who knows? Um, so hopefully, I hope for sure that he'll come to ETS because four of the world's best running a series together, like that's all we want. Like that's everything we want. Like be it 8 scale, be it 10 scale, I don't really care. I want the series where the best of the world are in. And Infinity has the money to send Naoto over. Infinity has the money to send all of their team over if they want. And I think if some of the Americans get good, I mean they are good. Like Sam Isaacs made the main. Like I said, Jacob Cruz was the main. Maybe some of these guys are gonna come over, more often, and compete. Maybe not, but still, at least best in the Europe together would be great. Um, yeah, exciting ETS. The thing about ETS is though that I think there's like 8 rounds or something crazy. So it's like there's always another one we could talk about. So I think we should
Yeah,
move
like
on.
I think there's like yeah, let's move on. Like I can see like this is supposed to be like a EOS
Yeah, yeah.
podcast, then we've just gone into ETS, but no, it's a good touch point. But yeah, I guess you'll probably have more insight. Well, I guess I know Ty isn't here, otherwise he would probably be quite good at this. But I guess the next are we going to the next race, which is the factory tracks NSX
Yeah.
25?
So this was a I don't really know what to call these races because they are not club races. They're not like JBRL, and they're not like really, really big either. Because entry count is like the people count is relatively low. The entry count is medium. It's like a few hundred maybe at best. Um, because there's a lot of these recently on the West Coast, especially. But the thing why we always talk about these races is because there's a lot of top guys. For example, this race we had Mayfield, we had Fend, we had Rivkin, um, we had Horn. I think the only guy that really didn't go that I thought would go was Rivkin. So yeah, maybe him he could have been there, but most of these West Coast top guys and Fend was here. Oh wait, Rivkin is here too. So everyone went pretty much. Um, yeah, everyone on the West Coast kind of went, and but yeah, we was kind of missing maybe some of the East Coast guys, and but that's about it. So starting off with Truggy, Wiggins won it, but to be honest, I don't think any of the other pro guys ran it. Eiter was second and Hansen third. I don't really know who these guys are. Uh, Brian Eiter and Nils Hansen. I don't know who these guys are. I'm sorry, but Wiggins won it. That's it. That's it. That's all I can say about Truggy. Um, Truggy was actually interesting because you'd expect someone like Fend or Mayfield uh, or one of the other guys to win. Mayfield didn't actually run it, so that's why Mayfield's not here. But the guy who won it was Frankie Contreras. Um, sure, this was at the Dirt in Paris. So it was kind of like a DNC prep race for these guys. And Frankie is really good at DNC every year. So I guess it makes sense that he also good here for this race. But still, beating Fend is no small feat. He straight up beat Fend in the main. Fend actually TQ'd, but Frankie came through. Horny second, in third. A good result for him too. Not all of the guys ran truggy, so I guess yeah, sure. Like these probably should have been the top three either way, but still, I think all of these guys can be somewhat happy um for their results. Yeah, I don't know how much you follow this race. So I don't know if I should ask you anything about your thoughts.
Yeah, that was good. I wasn't sure. Was that the one where it's got a pretty big double in front of the rostrum, or am I thinking of another one?
Yeah,
It's
to be
like you
honest,
have to like brake. You have to like brake, basically almost stood still and then come down, or at least that was the line I saw Mayfield taking, or something along the lines of that.
I think so. Yeah, I think was the one because this was like very off-roady. It was and to be honest, the other race we have, the TNR race, there wasn't any coverage. So this was more off-roady, kind of like okay, it was layout by Anthony. It wasn't Joey's layout, but it's pretty much like any DNC would be. Um, the track looked really extreme, to be honest. It was maybe a too extreme for my liking, but I mean, like yeah, each to their own, I guess, in that sense. And it was a good layout, like it always is with these guys. Um, but yeah, moving on to e-buggy. Mayfield won it. I don't know what happened to Dakota. Because he was all the way down in 15 qualifying, and then made his way up all through the main up to second, but Mayfield was outgone. Um, Fend was a bit faster, so sort of a good thing going home, but yeah, Mayfield won it by 10 seconds. So I mean, good thing for Mayfield as well. Briefkin in third. I guess that's a good run. I'd say that's a good run for him. He's usually been good on the West Coast. Um, Wiggins definitely had a rough time. I think I don't know what happened to him, but he fell back and then uh broke or something. Um Similar story with Mayfield. He started in seventh, got up one place, and then after 3 laps he broke something, I'm assuming. Um with Cavallari, first race with Mayako. So something maybe interesting there, but to be honest, the results weren't that interesting. As I said, broke in e-buggy, and then moving on to nitro, nitro buggy. Cavallari was in ninth, um, so nothing spectacular to be honest. But I wasn't really personally expecting much for him. Mayfield had a breakage in nitro buggy. He qualified third, but then obviously broke very early on. And one thing that Finn can come home with from this event is he's still unbeatable in Nitro Truggy under X-Ray. Sure, it's only 2 races, another one quite small, but so far unbeatable in Nitro Buggy for Dakota. Reepkin with a second, but that being said, he was well. I mean, 10 seconds over 22 minutes is not bad, I guess. So it's pretty good. Lime with a third from a TQ, right behind Spencer. So a good result for him, I'd say. And Frankie in fourth, and Drake actually in fifth. So a good result for him as well. Um, Overall, I don't know. Like this event was kind of like it's tough when it's only 20-minute mains and like both in Nitro Truggy and Nitro Buggy. It's tough to say anything like from there. It's like, okay, this guy got a good start, got out to a lead, and they won, which pretty much happened in both classes. Um, that being said, I do think Fend is gonna come home here from here quite confident going into DNC. Mayfield maybe a little bit on the back foot. E-buggy was good for him, so he'll be happy with that. Um, and Rivkin, I don't know. Um, it's tough to say if he'll be happy with that. Maybe he'll be happy himself, but it's maybe too far still. Like if he actually wants to like win DNC or do something big in A scale, he's gonna have to step up. Like Dakota and Mayfield are on another level. I do think he has a much better chance this year, and the buggy result was good. So yeah, maybe I'm being a bit too harsh on him because he was only 10 seconds behind Fan, but um, I don't know. It shows promise, sure, but I'm not too content on him yet. And then last weekend we move on to another race. Um, in a I don't know how close this was because I don't really know where this race
It
was.
was actually
TNR
it was
Fuels.
actually it was actually like I believe like 38 minutes away. It was like really close.
Yeah, but I still we tried to look it up. I don't know the exact location of this place because they didn't announce it on any of the race promotions. And then the live RC showed Palm Desert. So by the way, TNR Fuels 2025 A Main Challenge. There was absolutely no coverage from this event. I don't know why. There was on the previous years. It was a huge thing. But this year is really down on the low. Um, they did have like a overall champion. They did have like a trophy background and everything. So they for sure put some effort into it, but no coverage whatsoever. So a little bit of disappointment. Either way, in e-truggy, Wiggins won it again. He's an e-truggy. Can we call him an e-truggy specialist at this point? Joey Bordon in second, and then Eiter in third. What was his first name? Because I don't think people are gonna Brian Eiter. Brian Eiter in third. He's an e-truggy guy too. And the Nitro Chuggy, we move on to the class that I think everyone ran. So no Fend at this race, but we had Mayfield, Rivkin, Contreras, Heckert, Horn, Fee was here, and Lutz was here. A lot of like top guys. Yeah, Lime as well was here. So a lot of top guys at this event. So
Cool.
in Chuggy, um, Mayfield won it. Uh, Rivkin second, and Wiggins third. And I don't know, like everyone with a 10-second gap pretty much. Even the fourth is Frankie, who is fourth a 10-second gap. Um, but as I said, a lot of people attended, so I assumed it'd be like Lutz, for example, struggled a lot in Truggy. He qualified seventh. He got up in the beginning. Well, actually, now that I look at it, he only had a flame out here. So I guess it was that his speed was okay, but the issue was the flame out. Um, But a lot of these guys, I was expecting to see them more in a fight. Fee, some kind of issue in the beginning, um, and then got up, but some kind of issue in the end, I assume. Um, I don't really know what happened to all these guys at the end because again, there was absolutely no coverage. Um, but something must have gone on at at the Truggy main because seems very chaotic. E-buggy was actually one of the more interesting ones because Fee actually ended up winning. Um, Rivkin TQ'd it. Um, he had a really rough start. I don't know what happened, but had a really rough start, and then climbed all the way back to fourth. Um, Fee started from fourth and uh, got up to first midway through the race, and took quite a good win actually. Good gap to Wiggins, and then to Fenster in third. Again, similar story to Truggy. Rivkin, as I said, in fourth, Horn in fifth. Um, Lutz like in Truggy, really far down in 11th. Started out okay. I don't know if these are crashes or what happened to him, but definitely not the run he wanted. Cavallari in 14th, not a good run for him either. Mayfield not on the list or e-buggy. So one thing that's really weird to me is like a lot of these guys run like one or two classes at these races and they don't run all three. Like Mayfield only running nitro classes at the TNR race. But that being said, Mayfield also won both the classes he's run. So he won both Nitro Buggy and Nitro Truggy. So definitely a big improvement for the week before, where um had a breakage in the buggy class, won this really comfortably, over 20 seconds to Rivkin in second, Wiggins in third, um yeah, Lutz in fourth, Heckert fifth. Kind of, I don't know, like definitely very expected. Um, I would have expected Frankie to be a bit higher up, but he did have some technical issues, long laps here and there, and he was right at the back. Fee, similar story. I'm assuming ran out of fuel at the end, a flame out midway through. Um, Probably these guys would have been there closer in the fight. Uh, But going into DNC, I think Rivkin and Mayfield are sort of the top guys from the West Coast. Lutz definitely on the back foot, but I still think neither of these guys have anything on Fend. Um, Other things from this event, Fee, as I said, big win in e-buggy, and then Wiggins, he was Mr. Consistent, finished one e-truggy, finished third in nitro truggy, second in e-buggy, and third in nitro buggy. So he took the TNR title. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that means, but he won the overall. Okay. Now that we got all the other races out of the way, and to be honest, like for me, both of these American races that we talked about, or California races that we talked about, it's kind of tough to bring anything out of them. They're small. They're kind of for the clubs around there and for the people around the area. Sure, these big guys go there, but then, yeah, I don't know. It's definitely not like ETS, even though it was like only for touring cars and like it was in Europe or whatever. It's not like really the area we focus on most of the time. That it's much easier to tell from a race when there's proper coverage and when there's like all of the top names present. I think like it's sometimes you, at least I don't realize it that much because I look at the results from American races all the time. But when you actually try to tell a story of what happened, like I don't know what the hell went down at TNR. I know that I know for sure that Mayfield won the classes he attended, and but like how good did he look? How was it? I don't know.
It almost felt like, I mean, maybe I'm going to be absolutely wrong here and probably get roasted in the comments for this, but it almost kind of felt like a DNC warm up, both of these races. I don't know if that's just my
Yeah,
opinion from, I guess, because there wasn't really much coverage. And I obviously, the NSX race is at the Dirt Paris, which I assume that's where the DNC will be this year.
yeah. DNC will be there.
And I guess the TNR race is obviously its own race, but I guess because it's, again, I might be talking absolute crap here, but like because I guess the climates are obviously they're only put half an hour away from each other. Maybe the dirt is pretty similar, so you could argue it's valuable practice, or maybe it's not. But it may, but yeah, I guess you could say there wasn't any coverage, so I guess it's hard to kind of, like you said, say much from it. Like kind of, I mean, from the sound of it, it looks like it was Fend and Mayfield that kind of did pretty well, and obviously Fee got his first big win, which is obviously absolutely fair play for him. Like, congrats.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think you're talking rubbish because I think the only reason people went to these races was because it's a great warm up for DNC. Like, I bet for sure, like, um, Rivkin wouldn't travel to California 2 weekends in a row to race 8 scale unless it was for that DNC was there here in the area, like in a month or so. What is it now? Maybe yeah, it's around a month now that we'll get DNC. And yeah, I mean, sure it's good. Sure it's good that people go to these races, and I mean, there's nothing negative about that. But then again, it's like I'd wish, like, I, I don't know. I guess it's just that the big races in America are race time events and DNC these days, and well, Silver State obviously. Then rest of it is just like race for the people there. And for us, sure, we can get some storylines like, oh, maybe Wiggins will be good at DNC. But the thing about me is I'm quite pragmatic at the end of the day, and like looking at these results, sure, Fee had a great e-buggy run. Maybe Lutz was struggling this weekend, and like yeah, Fend went really good the weekend before at Paris, and then Mayfield won his both of these classes, and Rivkin was right there. When we go to DNC, like taking anything into account from these races, is like it's gonna be worth nothing because it's like it's gonna rain most likely at some point. Qualifiers are gonna be like the track's gonna change so much in between rounds. The watering is gonna be inconsistent. It's so much down to luck that like it's gonna be it's completely its own race. And at the end of the day, it's gonna be either one of the Europeans or Dakota or Mayfield who's gonna be good. And that's kind of it. That's kind of what I have to say. I know if Keenan was here, he'll be like giving me the watermelon seed, everything. Don't talk bad about the Americans. But at the end of the day, it's like Mayfield comes to these races to have fun, to drink beer. He basically goes to this race, packs up his cars. Okay, I'm talking out of my ass here. I don't know what Mayfield does, but if I was in Mayfield's position, I'd be going to this race to drink beer, have fun, go out for that 20-minute final. They had 30-minute finals. Go out to that 20-minute final at the NSX and the 30-minute final at TNR and see what happens. If it's good, it's good. Whatever, you know? And then you go and smoke the field in both of the classes. Like, yeah, there's still two guys in America. They're Mayfield and they're Fend. And the rest are there at their best, you know? That's kind of my analysis of these last two races. At least we got something out of this.
Yeah, I guess we got something from it.
Okay. Now we move on to EOS. The race recap of the week is from Euro Off-Road Series 2025. But before we move on to that, we have to play some advertisements. And this section of the podcast is brought to you by Invisible Speed and ML Toys. And we're going to play the Invisible Speed advertisement first. So stop scrolling.
Stop scrolling. You want to be Lewis Hamilton? Learn something new with Invisible Speed. You can't do everything at 100% maximum speed. You have to be smooth. I mean, when you drive a real car, if you drive a real car, how do you just, when you get to a 90-degree corner to turn into the parking lot, do you go like that with the steering wheel? Do you like slam on the throttle and the brake? No, you probably turn the wheel smooth and get on the throttle smooth. Same thing with an RC car. If you want to learn more and make your speed visible, stop scrolling.
Stop scrolling. All right. That ad is targeted for the absolute RC nerds who love to take these as real cars. This is a real sport. And I'm part of that group. So like that's all for. The next ad read is kind of the exact opposite, and that's why we paired them together so we don't get conflicting audiences on the same ad. And this is the Power Wheels by ML Toys. I have to say, like, I have no idea what this is. I know I don't know if I can say the other wheels brand or if this is like a competing thing, but I'm assuming these are like some toy cars. Keenan knows more about them, and he's actually making a podcast um, with ML Toys as the main sponsor of that podcast. He's gonna dive into this world. He's already into action figures. He's already into that kind of stuff. I'll let him do his thing, but because I'm behind the wheel, I'm gonna do the ad read, and you can hear at least what they say, what they are. Um, so attention RC and ride-on enthusiast. Looking to take your power wheels to the next level? ML Toys has you covered. Specializing in upgrades for power wheels and ride-on vehicles, ML Toys offers everything from high-performance motors and gearboxes to custom batteries and lighting kits. Whether you're aiming for more speed, better durability, or just want your ride to stand out, ML Toys has the best parts and expertise to make it happen. Upgrade your ride-on game today at ML Toys, and don't forget, our Power Wheels podcast is dropping this February. Stay tuned. And yeah, there you heard it. Keenan is doing podcast with support of ML Toys about Power Wheels. Um, I gotta tune into at least few of those episodes because I want to know what this is. It has motors and it has lights, so I don't know if this is like how big these are, but like we will know about it at some point for sure. Um,
I'm actually looking on the website now. It looks like I mean, I don't know if I don't know if Keenan will fit in any of these cars, but like
oh, is it one of those that can like the kids have, like the kids drive on these?
I think, but of course, I'm sure there's way more to it. So
Oh
I think
yeah,
probably
like
the best.
well, like, with everything, there's like the hardcore side to it. So I guess this is like hardcore Power Wheels. If Invisible Speed is hardcore RC, so
I mean, we are literally racing toy cars around the world here. So
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
who are
yeah,
we? Who are we to talk? So,
yeah, exactly.
but so no, I'm sure anyone interested, by all means, listen to Keenan's podcast. I'm sure it'll
Yeah,
be as good as this one.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll tune in to at least know what's going on with this because I do not know. But now that we have that advertising out of the way, we're going to move into what we actually came here for. We spent almost exactly like an hour talking about all this stuff that, we got to go through. We got to keep track of what's happening in the RC world. We we learned that Mugen is killing the or not killing uh, how do I say? They're doing really well in the on-road market. We learned that Mayfield's drinking beer and beating all these other guys. Um, and don't get me that I'm sure Mayfield drives his A final sober. I'm just making that joke to
Yeah.
say to people that Mayfield is the type of guy who wins against these guys, even even though he maybe not be having his full focus in the game, um, because he's just that good. Um, but now we actually get to talk about like we get to go on like this section of the podcast is just one big tangent, and that's the EOS. And we're gonna start it off by talking about some of the stuff that I wasn't actually aware of, but we have here the tire selection, and I actually would like you to tell me a little bit about this because I have like no understanding of the current 10 scale market. But there was I don't know if there was ruffle about this before the event, but at least I've heard this be a complaint. So they've chosen some front tires, the shard and the splinter. Let's start with the splinter, right? Two-wheel drive front tire. Tell me
Yeah.
a little bit about
There is
why
there
this.
is some there is some I wouldn't say kerfuffle, but there is also some kerfuffle. But let's get into yeah. So the Splinter is probably the pin swag equivalent of the Schumacher tire. So for the longest time ever, the EOS have been running on the cut stagger tire, which is I don't know, I can't remember the J concept equivalent in my head, but it's basically got almost like shark fin kind of style staggers instead of pins in the tire. So But these tires were made like the car stagger tire, which is what we used to run on at EOS. They were made like almost 15 years ago. That's what I've been running on for the longest time. And I think as carpet racing's got more demanding, I mean, wanting to get more steering every way we can, uh, Schumacher were looking at other options. So they made Diffusion Slim, which was a tire we used a lot here in the UK. And then that was a good tire, but we were still basically modifying them to get more steering. So then they brought out the Splinter, which is kind of basically what we should have had in the first place. And that kind of been the new tire for indoors. So this year, basically, well, we'll get onto the rear tire stuff in a sec, but it's kind of been a new tire basically for two-wheel running on the front because in the last few years, a few of the brands have been struggling quite a lot with steering on the two-wheel drive. So with the cut stackers, we were doing everyone was, to be honest, was doing quite a lot of modifications to get that tire to work and get steering. 2 years ago, we were allowed to modify the tire. Last year we weren't, but it was kind of a grey area where you could basically, I don't know if anyone knows what a cut stacker looks like, but it's kind of got, I don't
It has
know,
that lip. It has that lip
yeah,
on the
it
side.
has a lip, but basically, that was basically we kind of found out was losing. When we didn't do anything to it, it was losing steering. So what we were doing was
Yeah.
flooding the lip with glue, and now you were allowed to do that. It was a bit of a grey area, but you were allowed to do that. So it kind of made the tire solid. So it would give a little bit more steering, not as much as like gluing the lip down, which is what we were allowed to do the year before. So the carcass would almost be like an oval, and the tire would be
Yeah.
solid. There wouldn't be any movement in it. But I kinda have mixed feelings about the Splinter. While I think it's a great tire and it does exactly what we wanted, I kind of feel now it's made two-wheel just even more aggressive. So I
Yeah.
think obviously for the top guys it's fine because it's what we've been wanting, but for the hobby guys it's a bit like it's just making the car so much more twitchier to drive, and we're gonna have to like try and make the car drivable, or if you're able to handle on to, obviously if you're able to hang on to it, obviously it can reward you. But I kind of think it's made the cars a little bit more twitchy. If I was the EOS well, not organization, the host, would I do the same thing? Absolutely, because I think it's what I've all wanted. But I also just think it's the byproduct of it. I think it's just made it really difficult to drive now, two-wheel drives. I mean, it's still not as bad as four-wheel, but I think it's definitely heading that direction. So it's kind of a weird one. And then what I've noticed is the tire wear is just on another level. So EOS actually had a new EOS carpet, which is fantastic. But like in previous years when we had a cut stagger, a new carpet, it felt like you could at least get, 3-4 runs like from them. But now like it was crazy like this year, new carpet, like by finals, like you're lucky. I mean, of course the tires lasted, but like they were definitely dropped off in pace by the third I guess time using them. And I don't mean this as a dig to Schumacher or EOS. I completely understand why they did it because we needed it, to be honest. But it's kind of just seems like it's also just making things a little bit harder to drive. So I kind of don't really know how to fix it. But I don't know if it's just something we just got to get used to. But it's not terrible. It's not like it's undrivable by any means. But it's just yeah, it's just a new way of driving, I guess, to be honest. And the Shard tire kind of is similar to what we had before, but instead of but the Fusion would have the staggers on each side plus another stagger on one side. But now the Shard adds an extra row of pins where the stagger was. So, I'm not actually sure why the need was to make it, but I mean, it's actually a thinner
But isn't
carcass as well. So
isn't this one also that it doesn't have the lip? Did Fusion have the little lip on it?
yeah, it did, but not the same way like the two. It kind of had like I guess like an
Yeah.
extra stage that made sense. So it's a lower profile tire. So to be fair, we were basically doing the same thing with four wheel. Where I mean, we couldn't do it at
Yeah.
the EOS, but like MK for example, we like would cut that bead off and basically shunt it So we can't.
Yeah.
I guess it's just to do what we were doing before anyway. So I think to be honest, in several ways, both these tires are a great thing because you can just take it out the packet. You don't need to mess around with it. You just put a little bit of glue in the sidewall and kind of off you go. But then the other thing I just feel like it's just making the cars just harder to drive. But I think the problem is if Schumacher didn't do it, someone else would have done it anyway. So it's just, I think, just how the development's been going. I mean, I know you haven't raced 10 scale in a while, but it'd be kind of good to get your insight on it as well.
Yeah, because I'm the of the EOS generation that we kind of just figure out that you actually, even if you don't glue the side wall, it's faster on the track and you get more steering on the track if you glue the inside of the lip. So we didn't even glue it like down the lip. We just put glue on the lip so it would be stiffer, so you'd have more support when you would steer. And that was kind of the era I lived. Um, and then we moved on to the Cactus. That was kind of a nightmare because it was exactly the same as mini pins back in the day, where you had to Dremel and cut pins, and it was a disaster in my opinion. The fronts, four-wheel drive fronts, and two-wheel drive were great because you had the Cactus in the back. Only issue I had was that then the issues with rotation started because with mini pin and the cut stagger in both two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive, and the balance of the car in my opinion was really good. Sure, in four-wheel drive I did dislike the stagger in the front due to the fact that you don't have actually any drive in the front, but the balance of the car was really good, and it was actually quite easy to drive on the EOS carpet. Um, then we moved on to the Cactus. The rotation of the car struggled a lot. And I think that is the reason why all this messing around with the front tires of the two-wheel drive started, because you needed that extra steering. In four-wheel drive, it was the opposite because we also moved to the pin fronts with the Fusion, or the Cactus, before we had the Fusion. And I never actually have driven the Fusion, so I have no comments on that. I do think these new front tires that are here, they are kind of like the everything people did to modify the existing tires are now in one package, as you said. But I think the issue here more so is the fact that we are having a tire war within 10 scale. That was never a thing in Europe. Like every single race I know of used Schumacher tires. So the only thing they had to worry about was tire wear and drivability. But now we're kind of moving on to the territory that Schumacher is trying to gain the market, entire market in America as well. So they have to also make these tires. And then like additionally, like the people are being much more aware of the effects of the tires because of the fact that like a lot of these guys, European guys, go to America and they have ran the J Concepts tires, the I don't even know, Fuss Bites or whatever, and they know how a really good front end tire feel, really fast front end tire feels in a tool drive, and they know, okay, we have to do something here in Europe to fix this handling problem of the car. And then now we're at this point. And I don't know what the solution would be. Would it be to perhaps for Schumacher to create a less aggressive tire? Maybe. But then again, like in America, that tire is useless because it's slower. So it's a balancing act, I think. And I think for spec tire racing, you have to actually develop a good spec tire. And that is the big issue we've had in 8 scale, I think, that why we have never gone to spec tires is because it's really hard to develop a tire that lasts a long time and is fast and is easy to drive. You can do 2 of those things, but doing all 3 is nearly impossible. Um, and I think that's sort of what held back the 8 scale market from going to spec tire, whereas the 10 scale market, they have always been spec as far as I know, in Europe, and that's what happened. In America, you drive slicks, so like how can you make a slick differently? It's very subtle changes to the handling, and then you can do so much with the foam and saucing. So in America, it's very different, but I think 10 scale is kind of now facing the same thing that I feel 8 scale has always had with spec tires, that they have to develop the tire for an open market that is America, and they also have to develop a tire for that is great for spec tire racing. And I think that's where the disparity happens. The top drivers say, "Oh, these tires are the best," but then guys that are maybe not as talented as them, or they're not like on the narrowest edge of the car all the time. Maybe for those guys, it's better to just run stagger. I don't know. Should it be changed for next year? I don't really know. Do they have like a stagger without the lip?
No, no, not at the moment. So at the moment,
Yeah.
I mean, they have it's called the Fusion Slim, which is kinda, it has the lip and it has like the saggers on the sides, but then pins in the middle. But I think a lot of it as well is like you have to bear in mind is like we're running so much power now as well compared to what we used to
Yeah.
run, like
Yeah.
in the days when me and you used to run EOS, like, for example. So while, yeah, like, we could run different tires and develop more tires, like, also, I think you have to remember, I mean, I'm by no means a tire engineer or anything, but the amount of power we're running through it, like, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that we're going through them so quickly. So, like, I know it's a big thing in the UK that, like, some guys have their own comments about the Schumacher tires, for example, but I'm also like, well, if you run any other tire with all that power, like, it's gonna be the same thing, like, so I'm gonna say we're in a little bit of a rabbit hole. I know this kinda carries on the tangent we had a little while ago when we were talking about power and foil and so on, but I think it's also ultimately it's like, if it's faster, we're gonna do it, and I think
Yeah.
ultimately that's kind of what it boils down to, because racing is all about just going as fast as humanly possible. Like, it doesn't matter how you have to drive, and it will, like, people are gonna conform to that. I know, like, for example, Mayfield said, like, he feels like the cars now aren't as easy to drive, but obviously they're faster.
Mhm.
But I think that's just how, even just not even RC, just everything else, like, I don't wanna say Formula 1, but, everything else, that every kind of motorsport as well, like, if it's harder to drive and it's quicker, I think people are gonna do it. But, I mean, it does lead to a problem, though, where does it get to a point where it's so hard to drive that it's not even fun anymore? I mean, I think we're
Yeah.
well far away from that, because we can make our cars easy to drive and fun, but it is,
Yeah.
I do think it's something that worth thinking about.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And one thing I'm thinking here is like, why didn't Schumacher look at what people were modifying on their tires, do exactly that, and then keep it as that? Because because then we are in a situation like that you can't really modify the tire anymore. And because the stagger, I had never any issues with the stagger, and the only issue was the lip. And I don't like rules where you're like, "Oh, you can't glue the lip." I'm like, "Okay, but I can glue some parts of the lip." Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
So,
I
I
mean I
think
mean,
the
being honest,
solution
like, yeah, sorry, carry on.
yeah, yeah, I think the solution would have been in tool drive just to make make the same carcass as the, splinters, but then just have the um, stagger thread pattern. And then for full drive, I don't know, like, it's hard to say because I never ran the Fusion, so I don't really know what the other option is. But I think four-wheel drive altogether in carpet is an insane class that it's yeah. I don't know. I've talked about this so many times. I'm not gonna say it now, so we can actually actually get talking about the race. But I think there was room for just to upgrade the stagger to be what people wanted it to be, and then continue as that.
Yeah, I mean, while I mean, I don't wanna keep banging on to this, but while by the way, I 100% agree with you because I think the cut stagger just had a better feel. I think, like, especially it got to a point, like, for example, Tommy Hall, he won the Euros with the Proline Prism tire, which is basically essentially what the Splinter is. So I think while Schumacher, yeah, they could have made, let's say, a cut stagger, which was, you didn't need to modify. I think ultimately it still wouldn't have had the steering like what some of the competitors do have now. Like in this case, Proline, because obviously for a long time, our guys, we were running this Proline Prism tire because it had pins, basically what a Splinter is, and it was faster. No doubt
Yeah.
about it. So I guess for Schumacher, they were like, well, we have to do something about it. So I mean, while in an ideal world, it would have been great to have something like a cut stagger but just without the lip. I think they had to just do what just had to keep up with the competition, to be honest with you. So
Yeah,
I get it, but
yeah. At the same time, though, like my issue with the situation is that EOS the only race that controls front tires in tool drive. Like, I do not understand to this day why the hell have we kept on the open tire in the front for tool drive? Like, what is the why? There's no good reason except for the fact that once back in the day, the rule was that all the tires that have drive to them, they are controlled, and then the undriven wheels are uncontrolled. But in my opinion, like you can just change that. You can just say all tires are controlled, and that's the rule. So I think this could have been a great time to introduce a rule like that. So because the tool drive front tire game to me, it's always been kind of stupid because like it's so unnecessary most of the time. And especially now, I feel like it's led to the fact that we are actually running a front tire that not many people like, or at least that's the assumption I'm getting. Sure, there are probably people who actually like the more aggressive front end, but I'd argue that more people would enjoy the stagger.
yeah, I definitely think the hobby guys, which is why the EOS guys, I remember asking Uwe, who runs the series, like, why did you stick with us for so long? And it's because the hobby guys enjoy the feel of the cut stagger.
Yeah,
But I mean, I think ultimately it boils annoyingly. I don't want to say annoyingly, but I think it just boils down to like we're modifying it so much. A lot of guys were complaining, like the top half of the field were complaining that obviously we couldn't get the steering out of it. I mean, like it is a whole rabbit hole in itself, but like a few brands, like just we couldn't get the steering into the car, and
yeah,
I felt like we needed that tire. So, but I think I think unless we should
yeah,
probably leave it there. Otherwise, we're
yeah,
gonna get into this. Is gonna be a 4-hour episode.
yeah. Um, yeah. So apart from the tire, I think big talking point last year and again this year was that this series has got no funding. I do not understand why. We have Associated, we have Schumacher, we have X-Ray, all of these brands really pushing on the 10 scale market. Um, we even have Mugen trying to push onto the market. All of these brands here, and then we cannot get together enough money to sponsor the series so that it can happen. And we have just one race for the whole series. To me, it's
Well,
really
I think none of
disappointing and
those.
annoying.
I think none of those manufacturers are actually sponsoring the series. I know for sure X-Ray isn't. I think from previous, uh, I guess I don't want to say beef, but I guess you could say it from that. And
Yeah.
so, like, I remember seeing the banners, and I couldn't like the sponsor you just mentioned now. I don't think any of them actually are, and but it really surprised me because it's such like they limited entries, so it wasn't like they haven't got the entries. But I know for a fact, like everyone that helps out with the EOS gets paid, even to the people that help pack away and stuff. Like they get paid for it, and I know Dawn isn't cheap by any means, but so I remember a few years ago, like when we used to race. Well, I say it like we don't race anymore, but you know what I mean. Like the Eastern European rounds actually wouldn't make that much money from what I remember hearing. So please, if I'm
Oh
wrong,
yeah.
someone let me know. But like then there was obviously like the German rounds because they always had way more entries. They were the ones that made the money. But I know back then they did have the backing of X-Ray, and I think they had the backing of another few brands as well. But I mean, I think that's why I was kind of like saying earlier on. I feel like I don't say temp scale's dying, so I don't think that's right. But I guess you could say, like, let's say there's less bigger races in Europe now, like because before we had the DHI Cup, and then we had the EOS Series, and then there was a whole bunch of other races that would go on. But now it kind of felt like, there's EOS, there's MK, there's the Euros, and then if it's a World Series, there's a World Series. And of course, I mean, this is Europe. We're not talking about America here. But it kind of feels like that. And I don't know if I feel like the EOS have a big control over that as well, because they stopped their series. Well, yeah, stopped it as a racing series. So it's a big shame because, but I think I remember initially the idea was they would have there was an Austria round of the ETS, and then it was meant to be an EOS. So this season should have been two rounds, but they turned out to only be one round, which was Dawn.
Yeah.
So I'm not actually sure what happened there, but it's a bit of a shame because I think it would have been really cool to kind of have it EOS not in Germany anymore. But I mean, I'm sure there's way more to it. But I mean, I can only speak from what
Yeah.
I'm just picking up.
Yeah, I don't know the behind the scenes stuff, but from what I've heard, I've kind of read between the lines that, the I think Tony Reinhardt is kind of the one who runs the series, like always quite an old man at this point. So I don't know if he does all the work. He's always there, at least when I was there. So he does a lot of work, but the Reinhardt family kind of runs the Euro RC series business. And like from their standpoint, I think they just realized that why do we make 5 ETSs and 5 EOSs when we don't make any money from the EOS and the ETS make so much money and they could even make more. So like I think they've just realized that like if the companies don't want to invest in it, like they're not gonna do it. Because back in the day it was pretty much like it was their family. And then, like, I don't exactly know. They were always these two ladies who was doing the tire registration and this type of stuff. And I'm assuming it was one of their wives. And then it was Scotty on the mic. And there's been 5 people who ran the whole freaking race. And then obviously they had people who helped out with the track. Um, but that takes a lot of work, and that like it's not like these are like some young, bros who want to hustle for something. It's like these people have been working in RC for their whole life and they're like closing in on their, pension years and, retirement. So I do understand, like, I totally understand it that if you have ETS who gets a full line of sponsors, like everybody wants to sponsor this series, and then you even then get like a full line of entries versus a series that sure it gets a lot of entries, but nobody wants to sponsor it. Nobody wants to like do anything about it. Sure, you're gonna pick the ETS. You're gonna do 8 ETS rounds for one EOS round, and I mean, I think I can't blame them one bit. If anything, I'm blaming sort of the off-road companies and people who are in off-road. That why is nobody stepping up? Like, and sure, there probably are people who are stepping up themselves, but isn't there a coherent like we're gonna put our money into this and we're gonna do this together and so on? And yeah, that has to be said because one race is not a series, and this used to be 5 races, 6 races, and it used to be a real series with the top guys. Yeah, that is a sad part about it. But the good part about it is this was a really big and flashy event. 4-day event. Um, a lot of guys. I can't even know how many entries, and my RCM is down for some reason, so can't recheck the account. But hundreds of
It was in the 500s, so
yeah,
it was huge.
a lot of people crammed into 4 days, and like some Americans are gonna be like, what, 500 entries? Triple mains for everybody. Triple mains for each class for every single main. 4 qualifiers. That's a lot, a lot of running. Um, so yeah, it was a great like spectacle. All of the top guys were there, so that was good. Sure, Bruno wasn't there, but I don't think Bruno is doing 10 scale anymore. So in a way, it was good. We had this one really special EOS, but then like yeah, as we spoke before, there is that sort of sad part about it that it used to be a series. It's not that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a bit yeah, because I think the thing for me is that now there's so many young guys coming up, like they have so
Exactly.
many limited opportunities to prove themselves. So either like you have to travel, let's say to America and do some of their series because they're just I think the American stuff is just way more publicized. So I think that means a lot more when it's publicized and like for example if I don't know a Ben Smith like beats Dakota Fend that it's like oh crap he beat Dakota. Not saying that there's no
Yeah, yeah,
European equivalents, but yeah, like it's a bit of a shame. Like so basically means now on a good year you have basically 4 uh obviously there's probably more, but 4 opportunities to really prove yourself. Well before like there was even more like 10 because you have the EOS series and you had DHI Cup. I'm sure there's other races I'm missing out as well, but I mean, I know I don't want to pick on any companies, but I know a lot of companies kind of refuse to. They would rather give products or so instead of help or
yeah.
instead of give money to the series. And I don't know, I don't want to cause beef here, but I think like that's definitely not the way to do it because those club of the EOS now they've seen it as not really that viable. So yeah, it is a big shame, but anyway, obviously, nonetheless, it was a despite that, it was a fantastic event. Like I think obviously we're going to get into the nitty gritty of it now. I think we'll start off with the track. I definitely think it's probably the best track they've had, especially in the recent years. I mean, the last 2 for sure since the race star guys could come in, they've done a fantastic job, and the last 2 were great. And this one just steps up another level. I think it was great to see like a really nice big jump section for the rostrum. Lots of doubles. I guess you could call it, yeah, doubles like across the track. Really nice section on the left hand side. When they even like what I really like what they've done here is that corner tabletop in the top left. Like they've kind of cut the corner because mostly, obviously, corner tabletop. You obviously just try to jump it in one, unless you're just worried that you're going to crash or whatever. You just kind of do it in 2. So it's nice that they kind of for the guys only listening to the audio version of this, basically, they've kind of I don't know what you would call it, but like they've kind of made it so you can cut across the inside of it. So they've kind of like
Yeah.
brought it down, so there's no barrier where like uh the corner would join up to. It's kind of like a 45-degree angle and a 45-degree angle, so you can
Yeah.
cut the whole thing basically, which I think is a really good thing to do. I think that's something more clubs and tracks should do. They start off with the slippy. I'm a big hater on slippy, especially on tracks which are really high grip, like an EOS. I just like you work so hard to make your car really good on high traction, and you add a slippy in there, it's so much more inconsistent.
I have
Yes,
never
I
heard that
yes,
saying before. A slippy? That's like what Will is saying, that a corner that there's no carpet, but it's just on the floor. But a slippy, is that a term that people use?
yeah, yeah, that's literally what we call it, a slippy, like a slippy section, or like
Yeah,
a
but
wooden because it's literally slippy
that's
as
such a
hell. So
UK such a UK thing to say though.
oh, 100%. It's like I mean, the one thing I'll bash on the UK for is we have so much slippy, but let's okay, I'm gonna call it wood. So you don't so
Yeah.
you don't like laugh the whole time. But we have so many like wooden sections to slow down the laps. But in my opinion, when you're making your cars so good for uh super high grip, and you add that.
Yeah.
I just don't. I think it ruins the flow. So basically, after practice, they basically removed it.
Yeah, they took it away. They put I don't know if it was wood on top of the carpet or they put carpet on there. I don't the specific, but
No,
yeah,
it was the wood on top of the carpet. So
yeah, because I saw the videos from practice and it was basically like cars would land, especially two-wheel drive, like people were spinning on that, and then it was a jump onto the slippy, as we as we call it.
there we
Like
go.
you
The
would jump
slippy.
onto the slippy on the left hand side, and then it was a 180 on the slippy, and then you'd go out onto the straight. So you'd have to power out of it, and you're jumping into the slippery section. So I don't like. I don't really know what Pavel thought with this. Maybe he thought it was an interesting section, but it was a 100% takeout opportunity. People were
Yeah,
spinning
because
on it.
you'd come out of the corner, and I guess if you get it wrong, or you try to get on the power a bit more to try to get ahead of someone behind you, obviously you could spin out and take that person out. And also, you're going to go full power onto like a left-hand section on
Yeah,
power. So,
yeah,
I mean, I see why he did it, but I just don't think it worked that
yeah,
well. And I mean, once they did that, track was perfect. I think there was no issue
yeah,
with it.
yeah, yeah. They remove it after practice, as you said, and then we have a really high speed front straight, and like I absolutely love the end of the straightaway. Like looking at the cars goes so fast around it, and then you have this um tightening apex all the way to almost a 180, and then you revert that, go a right hander. Um, then the front jump. How is this? Because it looks on here that it's not that big, but I bet in reality it was one of the biggest jumps we've had at EOS. It looks
Oh
it
yeah, it
looks
was like it's pretty big, like especially for European standards. Like that lander is actually made of two parts, so if you can tell, so that gives you an idea of how big it is. But it was really great
yeah,
because you had that little kind of like a hump into the double. So obviously, it didn't mean that you could obviously floor it and basically
yeah,
like crash all the way into where the wooden, or as you would say, slippy section would be. But it was really good because you can jump uh, into the lip of the jump and kind of bring it down in a really good way. But I thought that it was a really good rhythm section. That was awesome. Like
yeah,
more tracks should do that, I think.
yeah. And any aspiring track builder, like this is the way where you make a great jump section with not a lot of effort, especially when you have dirt. This is like extremely easy to do because you can just like dig a bit before the jump, dig a bit after, then you have your double, and then you just like make a little lip after. But this is like by far the coolest jump section to do. And like if you are an aspiring track builder, definitely do one of these to your track because it looks easy, but at the same time, you can almost come full speed from this first hip jump and still make the double so that your car scrubs a lot of speed for the big double, and then you can accelerate out of the lip. But it's a very fine line of if you can do it really fast or if you're gonna crash or so on. And another thing is that this is actually one of those because I've been speaking about this on the podcast a lot, like creating passing, like overtaking spots. This is definitely one of those because if you get side by side with a car at the end of the straightaway, um, they're gonna protect their line on the inside, which means they're gonna go a little bit wide on the left hander. Um, and then they're gonna be like a wide on the outside. And these type of jump sections are so that you're going to have to hit this jump as straight as possible if you're coming full speed from the first roller or hip jump or whatever you call it. And that's why like the fastest line is always to sort of square up early and go through in a straight line. And if you manage to sort of squeeze the car in front, like to take the inside line at the end of the straightaway, then go outside on the for the left hander, you're gonna really put them in a tough spot. And there's a big opportunity coming into this drop jump and 180. And especially sort of this is a more like tendency with drivers, but a lot of guys, if they realize that they make it wide out of this left-hander, sorry, a right-hander, they make it wide out of that right-hander into the hip jump and to the double, they're going to be trying to speed around you, and that's usually, especially if it's a little bit more slippery, means that they're going to be wide at the 180. So a lot of the times, if you manage to have a good like exit for the front straight, you can little by little generate an overtaking move into this 180. And it's a very intricate thing in track design, but this is a perfect example of how you make that happen. And we did see some like moves happen here. For example, in A2, Ronnefalk tried it down the inside. It didn't end good, sure, but he had the inside, and there was definitely this was the section where you could see most of the catching and being on the side by side of the cars happen on the track. Um, so yeah, de- definitely a highlight for me. The rest of the track to me is kind of like Dawn-esque because of the very weird T shape of the track or the track area. It kind of makes for this, I don't want to say awkward, but at times awkward, like back section of the track where you have to sort of fill the space. Um, but like you said, definitely one of my favorite layouts by eye. And the back, I do want to highlight again the back corner tabletop. As you said, it has that instead of having a sort of a center pole where in the pole of doom or whatever you want to call it, you have opened up the corner where you can cut the corner a bit, but if you're too greedy, it's gonna snatch your car to the inside. And it really reminds me of like rallying on gravel, where you have the ditch on the side of the road on the inside, and when you go to the inside, you can dip the inner wheel in there and gain a lot of rotation. But then at the same time, you don't want to go too much in deep because you're gonna, in this case, hit the pipe, or in real rally, you're gonna hit a rock or something. So it's a very intricate, like choice between lines, and I think this concept is something I'd like to see more often. I haven't seen it at EOS before, but basically they've just extended the pipe to the inside, and I assume there was something in between that, so the corner tabled up, so you couldn't get stuck between there. But yeah, I really interesting track for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, I wish there was more tracks like this I think in mainland Europe there is I've seen some of the Race Star Poland events. I know at one point they had a race series in like this stadium and it looked absolutely epic. And I even considered myself just going there and doing it, but I don't think unfortunately they do it anymore, or at least or maybe it's in a different venue and it's just every kind of similar to EOS where it's just every now and then. But yeah, I think to kind of conclude the track, fantastic. Other than the slippy, like nothing but good things to really say about that. I think it was exactly what we need. I think getting more jumps in there is great, which is kind of what they had there. I think that was probably the perfect amount of jumps. I mean, I wouldn't say no to bigger jumps, but like, I think that was basically perfect.
Yeah, yeah. The only sort of negative thing about this, I would say, is that okay, some of this goes because the Dawn space is quite constrained, but it, I would still wish like there would be more places where you could actually overtake, because especially the center section was really tight. It was kind of a chicane after chicane, like all the way up to the slippy, uh, like at the back. So, or at the corner table them actually. So from that center, the front double, all the way back to the corner table on the left hand side, every single like section was pretty much a chicane if you think about it. And I think that's what really makes racing hard. And I think that's why you saw so many accidents, as we're gonna go into next when we talk about like the racing side of things. Yeah, could be improved. To be honest, like that's on the next level. This was, in my opinion, a great track, no doubt about it. But there's still some, I think, work to do to sort of find the ways to make the perfect layout from this. And there's definitely some room for improvement still, but I think Powell has improved a lot from like his first layouts, although those were great as well. But thanks to him, European tracks are actually great these days. I they've taken a big step from those initial EOS rounds I remember when I attended. So really happy about the track personally.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, actually, just thinking about it now, maybe those guys should make their own series in Europe. I think they definitely could. I mean, yeah, I think
Yeah,
they could definitely do their own thing for sure because they have the track to do it. They just got to do it. But obviously, I know it's no easy feat putting on a big event.
yeah,
But yeah, I think that kind of wraps up the track stuff. So I guess we should get into the two-wheel drive qualifiers. So yeah, the top three was Orlowski, Kirup, and Boda. I think it's safe to say it was kind of unexpected that Boda would kind of have the pace he did. He was long time associated, and then he went back to S Works for a brief amount of time, and he's kind of come back to associated. So it was, yeah, I mean, it was pretty unexpected, but he looked really comfortable, and I think he did really well. I think he might have got a few Q2s in the round. He was very close to a TQ. I know at one point, maybe had a mistake or so, but I mean, like usual, like Kira Balls
yeah,
actually,
in Q4. Yeah,
yeah,
in
and then Kira,
Q4 he 10th behind Michal, so really close actually.
there you go, and then Kira was actually top seed, and Michael was actually all the way down in sixth at one point. But I mean, I think Michael's probably, I know he's obviously still young, but I think like, his experience showed, and he kind of came out the gate in Q1 with a TQ, and it kind of kept going that way. I think Kirup got a TQ at some point, but
Yeah, he got a TQ in Q3. Um, yeah, and I think Karup and Michal, I think they're like the undisputed top two in Europe in 10 scale, especially when it comes to tool drive. But I think overall, you'd say these two are the best of Europe at this point. But yeah, like you said about Boda, I was when I saw him up there, I was like, wow, because he's been totally gone for the past 2-3 years with S Works, and first big race with Associated, and he's qualifies in top three. I think that's impressive. That's like a career saving qualifying for him, in my opinion.
yeah, definitely. I like the guy. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a really chill guy, but I think like for a brief kind of amount of time, I almost felt like, at least in 10th scale, he kind of started like he was still obviously growing as a driver by all means. Like he did very well with S Works. He did make, I believe, an EOS A Main last year, but I kind of felt like he didn't have the same kind of, I guess if you could say the growth path was like quite strong before he went to S Works, and it kind of slowed down a bit, in my honest
Yeah.
opinion. So I think
Oh,
it's
for
like
sure.
it's
Yeah.
so it's good to see. I mean, obviously he did a lot more ape scale, and I know he did make the final at Buggyland. Like to be fair to him, but at least strictly 10th scale, yeah, it was quite impressive to see that he came back and to
Yeah.
associated, and he top 3 at EOS like straight away. And I know he's just the last few weeks he's come back, so. Yeah, I mean, obviously, Yorn and Mika doing good work with the SWEX stuff. So I don't know if maybe just kind of going back to a team he's more familiar with. Maybe it was kind of was the ticket for him.
Yeah. But then again, like Jon 16th in tool drive after qualifying, and Misha in 20th in tool drive. So I do think, I don't know how, because all of the tool drives looks very similar, but the S Works tool drive, these guys, I remember that one time Misha won that EOS round here at Dawn. But since then, like it's something's just not working on that tool drive car. I don't know what it is, but something's not right for these guys. And um a few things I wanted to like say on top of uh the fact that the S-Works guys were struggling, that there was a lot of big names in the B. So Zalewski, BQ, sorry, 12th, so not BQ, but 12th. Burak Ilic with the Mugen in B final, Lee Martin in B final, and Ben Smith. These are guys like, sure, Lee maybe kind of on the end side of his career. Maybe you don't expect him to be at the top anymore. But these other guys, they have been fighting for big wins before, and then all these guys in the B. So definitely a bit of a surprise to me.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a few guys in there I was quite surprised they were in the B, but I think it was also just, I mean, like you mentioned, Miko in the B and then Yorn in the B. I think it kind of just proves how competitive he's getting now in Europe. I mean, I definitely, I thought someone like Smith and Martin for sure would have been in the final. I mean, the thing I'll give Lee, to be fair, is he's kind of gone from where he was. I don't want to. I don't mean this in the nicest way possible, but I guess like say like the Schumacher stuff, I don't think suited him as well as, let's say, other cars. I think for him to, now it's going to take him time to build up the confidence, and especially locally, we could start to see it happen. And he did open up with a 6, but I think he had
Yeah.
some errors on his side, and he was in the B. I think Ben Smith. As well. Like, he did really well at the Euros, and I think he just had some rough runs. But I mean, but obviously, Zaleski and Burak have made countless EOS A finals. So
Yeah.
I think while it's easy to pinpoint these guys and kind of go into detail about their driving and stuff, I think ultimately it's just how competitive that A final was, to be honest with you. Like, that top 20, anyone in that top 20 at least at one point would have made an EOS A final or
Yeah.
like had similar results. So I think it kind of just boils down to that. And it was just on the day, maybe they just didn't get the runs in. And unfortunately, that's racing.
Yeah, and talking about getting runs in, Jona, he was started out poor. First run was bad, but then second round, second, really close to TQing. He was 2 seconds back. A second back from Orlowski. Um, then after that, nothing. Second best round was 10th. So sure, he barely scraped into the A main with a second and a 10th, but in a way that maybe tells something about Joanna, that he's not that consistent right now. But at the same time, it tells how really, really stacked this field is. Because like Ronnefalk, he has a 4th, he has a 7th. London, he has a 4th, he has a 6th. So these guys get into the sort of top 5 once in a while. Everybody pretty much in the A final had a top 5 to go into. You don't get any more those, because I remember back in the day, there was a lot of times that you could get into the A final with like a 6 and a 7. No, no can do anymore, because the
Yeah,
top 10
exactly.
is so tightly packed that you make one mistake and you're out of it, and then another guy's gonna replace you and get that 4th of the round. So, like I said, London and Ronnefalk, they sneak into the A final. Um, both have like a 4th and the 6th, and they're starting 8th and 9th. So it's crazy. It's crazy how tight it's gotten. And one actually thing I want to raise, because I kind of missed this, but Martin Bayer qualified 7th, so he made it in the A. Like, he's supposed to be retired, right? Like, he said he's supposed to be retired, but somehow on carpet he's still extremely good.
Yeah, I mean, I know he's doing a lot of stuff with the hoodie series, I believe. So I think that's kinda, I know you guys kinda made it sound like the hoodie series was quite a big series, but maybe, I mean, to me, it just seems like a check kinda, I mean, maybe it is a bigger series. I mean, I'm not actually that in touch with it, but yeah, I think to see Bayer, like, in 7th, like, that's a really good showing from him, because I think he's kinda taken a step back from the higher level, and obviously being more of a team player. I'm not saying that he will always sacrifice his own results, but, like, you know what I'm talking about. Like, his results isn't his main thing anymore. But I definitely agree. Like, it was 12 points to make it in, and I think that says something that, Yuna got in with a 2 and a 10. So even if you had 2 6s, you would have been BQ. Like, it just shows, like,
Yeah.
well, like, I think a few years ago, you could get in with 15 points if, like, on a good day, I guess.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I remember guys making it in with like an 8th and a 9th at like for some of the worst rounds, but those were always like outliers in a way. But yeah, it's crazy how tight it's gotten on the top. And yeah, moving on to the mains. I'll bring onto the screen A3 because these mains were hectic. Uh, I really like. I don't know what to blame on. I spoke a little bit with Yona, um, and he said that it's crazy there because he was obviously in the A final, but the way these people drive and h- he said that maybe it's because everyone's so young, but he for sure recognized that the driving culture has become much worse at this top level. Be it the front tires, be it the tracks, be it the power. I don't really know what it is, but like these A finals at these EOS races are really hectic these days. Pretty much every single time. Um, so taking a look at the A3, this was obviously you had Michal with the win in A2 from the TQ. Marcus started off with a win in A1. Um, and we're going into this third A main with these guys fighting for the win um together kind of. I don't know, like, does it change anything for them? Because like either way at this level at this time, you kind of have to always win. But Marcus and Michal, they have kind of become like the top two. So it was very hectic here.
Oh, yeah, I mean, especially between Orlowski and Kira. Like, it seemed like in A1, I think Kira won, and he was just hounding onto Michael, and I don't know, I can't remember if they had it coming together in A1 or if it was just a error by Michael. But I know, like, here A3 it was a little bit like, I guess some people would say controversial. I think I'm waiting for it to come up, but I think they had it coming together, but Marcus let Michael back through, which was the best thing to do. And I guess it kind of brought the whole field back up, and I think Michael had a small mistake, which kind of costed it
Yeah.
for him. So it's kind of, I've got to be careful what I say here, but I guess you say it's a grey area because while Marcus did have a coming together with Michael, and I don't know if it was intentional, like, but he kind of, and then Limo let him back through. He obviously rattled. I guess like it kind of, you know,
For sure.
I mean, I definitely would. I would definitely probably would have screwed up even if I was in Michael's situation. Well, I mean, Michael's obviously
Yeah.
definitely a better driver than me, but like, I know. I
Yeah.
mean, that would like bring your confidence, like in that run where you have like the whole train coming and hounding at you, and then you kind of unsettled. You know, you kind of just recovered from, I guess, a mistake, and you know, in this case here, like you can see, Marcus is absolutely like what Marcus I think was is very good at is when he has the pace is to hound onto
Yeah.
the,
There
like
it
there you
happened.
can see
Yeah.
there you can see that like what happened there, and then you
Yeah.
see that instantly four there's 4 cars behind him, and then I don't know when the next mistake happens. So
Yeah.
kind of weird
It is.
because there you go. Like so,
Yeah.
it's kind of I say it's a grey area because if I was Michael, I would have been pissed, which I'm sure he was, but it's also kind of like, well, I mean, it wasn't he. Marcus did everything he could have done. That he could have, like, he waited. Yes, he made a mistake. He waited, but you know, Michael's back in the lead, so it's a bit of a weird one. But it's just one of those, I guess. To be honest, I mean, Marcus had more pace, I guess you could say, in this final. So I mean, it is what it is. I think. I mean, it's interesting to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah. Obviously, we see here the initial contact between Marcus and Michal. I don't really know why he did this because he wasn't close. Like you could see the lap before they came by this corner. Marcus was side by side here, But here, he kind of just shot to the inside, jump on the curb, and hit Michal. I don't think this was intent. I don't think he tried to take him out here.
No, I
I
definitely
I
don't think
I
so.
I wouldn't understand why, but I 100% argue that the case here was that Marcus wanted to sort of bully Michal into a mistake, and that's exactly what you should do. Like I'm not saying that's not what he shouldn't do. You could see all throughout the main, um, he was right there behind him. He was trying to find a way to pass, and he couldn't. Michal held it together. But here comes sort of the tricky part. You saw there, Marcus, that was a blatant takeout, and he waited, and that's cool. That's cool. Like I get that. That's what you do. You take someone out and you wait. But the issue comes when we move out from this takeout. We move to sort of the back to the regular programming, whatever you say. Like we go back to racing from here, and you've taken this guy out. The whole field is bunched up behind you, and the guy who just took you out is still trying to like make the pass. It's like there's absolutely nothing wrong with what Marcus did. But if I was like Michal, let me bring that back up so you guys can get a look at it as well. I would be pissed, bit pissed too, because if we look at this, here we have that situation that Marcus takes you out. He waits on the straight and shoots right back, like behind you. There's a lot of cars behind you. You're trying to get a gap, and you make a mistake, and then from having a 5-second lead battling for the win, you go dead last. I would be furious at this point. I'd be so pissed at what's going on here. And it's tough. Like technically Marcus didn't do anything wrong here. But if I was in the situation of Marcus and I knew that I had enough gap that I could take him out and I could wait for him and I would still be ahead of the pack, I would consider this like a valid tactic to play. Like I don't think Marcus did that on purpose this time, but he might as well have done it on purpose because thanks to that takeout, he was able to get by Michal. I don't think he would have had as good of a chance to get by Michal if it wasn't for that takeout. And yeah, I don't really know what should be. My only thing I kind of would solve this with is we stop this waiting thing. Like if it was that Marcus took Michal out and he got a 5-second stop and go, he would have been much more careful behind Michal because he would have known that no matter how much time Michal would have lost, he would have dropped behind that pack that was behind him that Kovacic was holding up. So he would have been like subconsciously, he would have been thinking that if I touch this guy and I get a penalty, I'm gonna be dropping behind this pack. I just can't wait here, let him by again when he gets marshaled, and then continue my attack. So I think there's a dynamic here that when you take someone out, you don't really lose. Like as long as you have gap to the cars behind, you don't lose anything. You actually gain a lot. And I think like that's the only problem I have with this scenario. And to Marcus, this was an amazing drive for him. He was faster than Michal, no questions about it. He beat Michal, be it mentally, be it on track. He beat him. He beat Michal at this race. So a deserved win, a well-deserved win. But I mean, is this the way we want to see race decided? Definitely not. I don't want to see race decided this way.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I definitely see where you're coming from. I think a lot of it as well is, I mean, historically, the EOS hasn't kind of been as strict on penalties, let's say, and referee as I personally think they should be. And while I appreciate Scotty is the commentator, I know as well, like, I don't know if it's him that makes the judgment calls as well. But it's weird because from both sides, I understand their reasoning why, for example, Michael would be pissed because, like, he hasn't done himself anything wrong, and an external factor caused, I guess you could say, the crash because if Marcus didn't hit him, he could have potentially run away with that A3. But it's also, I guess I see why you could argue Marcus would have done what he did. I mean, I don't think it definitely, I don't think he was in his head like, "I'm gonna take him out," and it's
Oh,
like
definitely
kinda,
not. No.
I don't think it was that, but I think it was like, when you race, when you're behind someone that like, at that, let's say at this point, you're quicker, and you're obviously gonna hound them because obviously in your head, you're like, "I'm just gonna keep on hounding them until they make a mistake." And sometimes, in this case, you just end up making a mistake, and in this case, like, he tapped Michael and he waited, and I guess by that point, Michael then went on to make a mistake. So it's weird because I understand it from both sides, and I think ultimately in this situation, I don't, I think the way it ended was probably the way it was probably meant to be. I mean, there's also not saying that because Marcus was right behind Michael that Michael would have made a mistake later. But I know Michael is always very good when he's in the lead, and I know that's something he's very used to recently because he has been on the top for quite a while and still
Yeah.
is. But so I kind of get why Marcus would have done, like, I get it. I think it's frustrating for Michael, but I think it
Mm.
is what it is. I mean, Michael didn't seem, of course, I can imagine he seemed frustrated, but I mean, definitely not as bad as what happened in four wheel.
Yeah, and we're gonna touch on that later as well. But yeah, my kind of I definite I'm 100% sure Marcus wasn't like, okay, now I'm gonna take him out. Um, but the sort of level of like subconscious, like I have to watch out so I don't take him out. Like I feel the current state of RC that we don't have the chance to get a 5-second stop and go penalty. So like as long as the marshal isn't super slow, you like I know for sure when I'm in the lead and I can see on the side of my eye like where the guy behind me is. I know if like I can take a risk here if my car like wobbles somewhere. Like if I can take a risk to like make the jump, and if I crash, the guy's not gonna get by me. And like if I make the jump, I'm gonna get even bigger lead. So Marcus definitely subconsciously knew that now there's a enough gap where if something happens, we're gonna be good. And that's gonna affect all the micro movements you make as a talented RC racer. And you're gonna be a little bit more free. You're gonna be taking a little bit more risk. You're gonna try some line if you have a good line. And you're gonna lose that little inch of respect that you have for the car in front because you know that the worst that can happen is that the marshal is slow and you drop to third or fourth, you know? And I think that is the only issue I have with this situation. And I think that's something we should talk about more in RC. And we're not gonna go on that tangent now, but I think that is the takeaway from the situation, that we are like like any driver of any level who kind of has some level of talent, I think has this subconscious thinking that, I can take my chance now and I won't like the risk management in that situation. Because like Marcus was closer to Michal earlier on the race and he backed off. So was this lack of concentration? It could have been, but I would argue that this is sort of this on the subconscious level that you don't pay the little respect to the guy in front because you know that the loss isn't actually that big. So if you hit it, okay, too bad. We dropped back a bit, but we're still 1 and 2. And then if you in hindsight, if you look at this was the like Marcus won this race because of this move. Yo, he could have won the race later on, but this specific race he won absolutely because he took Michal out in that corner. Because I don't think there's any way you can twist it the other way around. So yeah, that was the win of the race. I think fair game to Marcus. He deserved the win, and he was faster. There's no doubt about it. But there's gonna be always that little like thought about it. That what if he didn't take Michal out there? Like, could Michal hold him off until the end? Maybe, but it was still 2 minutes to go or something. So it was a lot of time Michal would have had to hold Marcus behind.
Yeah. No, I definitely see where you're coming from with that, to be fair. So
Yeah.
I think that wraps up the 2-all
Well,
section.
that wraps up the win, but we still have to go through all the other guys who was in the main.
Oh yeah, yeah, of course.
So, these two were definitely a class of the field. There's no doubt about it. But behind them, Kovacic was actually the next best guy, I'd say. Definitely lacked a bit of pace, but he has proven to be really strong in these like finals recently, especially in tool drive. Third at the Euros, same top three actually at the Euros, just Michal and Marcus in the other way around, and Kovacic in third. A good result for him. I think Kovacic in third is that's a good result for him. But the guy I do want to bring up is Noha Ben Mohammed. So first big race with Schumacher, moving away from X-Ray to Schumacher, and finishes fourth here. I think this is I mean, apart from that one Euros final in the UK where he made I think it was third in full drive. Apart from that, I think this is his best result in his career, and definitely his best results in tool drive. So fourth for Noha, I mean, amazing. And I'll say that Tommy was fifth. Tommy Hall, another great from him. I think this is his. I'm not sure, but I argue that this is up there with his best EOS performances.
Yeah, I mean, he has maybe I think he had a second in A1 as well. So I mean, it's good to see Tommy back up there. I think he had I don't say he struggled last year, but because he also made a main last year. But I think in terms of Euros and so on, I think he was a little bit disappointed. So it was good to see him make it as well. He did the double A main as well. The only one to do it as
Yeah.
well as Marcus. So that was good. And yeah, I think with Noah Ben Mohammed as well, like I thought he would have. So I thought he would have taken longer to get ready to get with the Schumacher cars, but obviously it looks like he's kind of gone straight into it. And I think Kovacic as well. He had good mental game because he was in the B sort for qualifying, and when I was watching some of his qualifiers, and he looked extremely quick, but he would have like small bobbles and errors which kind of costed him. So I mean, he obviously strung it together. So I can't remember where he finished, if he finished on the podium or where he finished in the end, but he definitely brought it back for sure, considering the whole the the level of the event.
Yeah. Yeah. And just going down the list now, Clement, who had a great qualifying, uh, the mains were quite hectic, as I said, dropped down to sixth. I think it's still good. I think like when I saw the third, I was like, wow. In qualifying, when he was third, I was like, wow. But then again, like, um, you like sixth is really good considering where he's been. So I'd say maybe he a little bit overperformed qualifying, and in mains he was kind of where maybe he should have been. London is seventh. One spot up. Jona in eighth. 2 spots up. Ronnefalk in ninth. Stayed where he started, and Bayer rounding out the top 10. Dropped back quite a bit after qualifying, but he's a veteran compared to these other guys. One thing I do want to point out, there was 5 associated cars in the main, two X-ray and 3 Schumacher. So Like, you, you, you could be happy about that as an associated guy, but considering how much shit this B7 format has been getting, that's a good deal. It's a good deal.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we had some small niggles at the beginning, but to be honest with you, we're starting to find our way with it, and it's starting to be working really well. Like, I mean, it's great to see like Clement coming straight out of the gate with 3 and 5 of our guys in the main. Like, Landon, I think, is a little bit of a underdog. Like, I don't think he gets the credit like he does because he did make the final as well last year, even with the B6. So he's done really well here to do it as well again. And then obviously Yona made it. He scraped it in, but he's made it. He's made it in. Like he's always been really strong with a car, even when it maybe didn't have everything we needed. And obviously Tommy's done well. Marcus obviously won it in the end and showed it had more pace than the Schumacher. Because I think it's safe to say Michael with that Schumacher is a pretty good recipe for winning. So it's kind of good to see that the B7 platform, like is doing really well. Like it seems like Associated, like I know I'm biased, but obviously Associated always like work hard and always like to get there in the end, which seems to be the case. So I'm not saying this is just it, but yeah, I think it's a great showing for Associated.
Yeah. Um, to be honest, main action of Tool Drive was that fight for the win. I think when we get a fight like that for the win, that is what we're here for. In 10 scale, splitting wins, going into A3, first and second. That's the best case that can happen. Sure, we can discuss how it happened to win, but Marcus deserved it. Marcus took it, and he showed to be the guy on that day. Um, so yeah, Michelle, I'd say definitely the number one guy and the sort of the default pick for the win. And I think Marcus kind of took it from him. And but he deserved it. I think at the end of the day he deserved it. And yeah. Overall, Tool Drive was good. I don't really know if I have anything more to say about it. Do you have something to add?
No, I think it's getting pretty long, so I think we basically covered everything there. I mean, I can already tell the next section is gonna unleash the hounds quite a bit, so I think
Yeah.
it's probably good to go into that.
Yeah. So let's move on to the full drive. Obviously I think full drive started on Saturday morning. Or yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, so start off with qualifying. Track track stayed the same, is that correct?
yeah. So the track stayed the same. They didn't really make any changes to the track, so it was but we only had 2 rounds. Before there was 3 rounds of practice, but I guess one was like an open. It was like a free practice. It didn't really count for anything. But I think I mean, the guys. I think it's a sort of similar guys that were fast in practice. Marcus was actually top seed, and I mean, qualifying was a bit different, a bit of a different story for him. But yeah, I mean, straight out of the gate, I like Orlowski, of course, is very quick. And Ronnefalk, and I didn't expect Ronnefalk to be as quick as he was. I kind of like knew Zalewski is very quick, so I kind
Yeah.
of wasn't too surprised by that. But I mean, he's getting very, very quick. Is it like a? I feel like we don't see enough of him outside EOS, so it'll be interesting to see how he would do. For example, if he comes to the Euros in Slovakia and in America. But I mean, obviously he's got pace without a doubt. So it's good to see him there. Uh, it's also good to see the S-Works guys like kind of pull up from their 2-all performance. So Mika in 5th and Ion in 6th, which is was really good. And I mean, of course, we're gonna get into surprise and stuff, but Burak, top 5 with his
Yep.
yeah, is
Yeah.
I mean, I think everyone at this point knows that, he was just running an X-ray, but I found it funny how
Yeah.
Birkin was basically saying he was running a Traxxas.
Yeah.
I probably would have done the same if a million people were
Yeah.
asking me what car I was running.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was yeah, it was quite funny because we were in the bar the night before 4 wheel, and these are Burak's words, not mine. But he was like, well, we were questioning him, what car are you going to run? And he was like, oh, I'm going to run the X-Ray. I want to be fast for once in my life. And yeah, he did it. He literally, I mean, obviously he just took a sip, like laughing, and yeah, obviously quite. I mean, of course, he
Yeah,
had luck on his side, and supposedly he built the car the night before, so I think that's pretty bit of a badass way to win. But yeah, I
yeah,
give him I give him credit for it for sure.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, like you said, I wasn't expecting Ronnefalk after that two-wheel drive performance. I wasn't expecting him to be up there. Sure, in the main, of course, no doubt, and he's been better with the X-Ray four-wheel drive than the two-wheel drive. But TQ in Q2 and then a force to pair it up in the last round. Um, Starting second on the grid behind Michal. I wasn't expecting that, but then again, looking at the list, who's behind him? It's Orlowski in third with an X-ray, and like you said, Burak in fourth with an X-ray, and yeah, uh, I think it was weird because when you look at this list, the guys Zalewski was in the B main in tool drive, Burak was in the B main in the tool drive, same with Mika, same with Neumann. Um, so a lot of these guys who were right up there in full drive really struggling tool drive. So big difference there.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think it's pretty apparent. Like, there's a lot of guys that are a lot better at four wheel than they are at two wheel. It's like I think Zaleski is one of them he seemed to be a lot stronger in a four wheel class compared to two wheel. But I mean, you say that, but I mean, I remember last year he was on the podium, so I mean, it kind of all links back to how competitive it is. But I think also, I mean, obviously Burak, I mean, being an 8 scale guy, I mean, he's more in tune
Yeah,
with
yeah,
four wheel. I'm sure that has something to do with it. I mean, obviously he drove fantastic, like to do that. I think like Boda as well, like he's always kind of been a two wheel guy. I know when he made his Euros A final in back in Reims, I believe it was in two wheel. I don't know if he did it in four wheel, but I know for sure he did it in two wheel. And I think it kind of applies to Yuna. He's always been stronger in two wheel. So,
yeah,
but I think you have to kind of be a certain type of driver to be able to race these things on carpet for sure. Because I definitely think when you
yeah,
race on dirt and stuff, it's a bit more even. And if you're like getting two wheel, you're getting four wheel. But I think with the high grip stuff, I think there's definitely a bigger. It's definitely way bigger the driving styles from each class. I feel like.
yeah, yeah, and like you kind of said there, when there's a lot of guys who made the B in tool and A in four wheel, there must be the other way around as well. And um, the from behind the four that I listed, Kubovic made the main in both, finished seventh after qualifying in four wheel. Karup all the way down in eighth after like that two wheel driver sold. Noha Ben Mohammed put it in the main in four wheel as well, and Tommy Hall, a good result. But then behind them, the guys who made A in two wheel and dropped to B, Jona as a BQ, and the thing about Jona that is a bit disappointing was that he was third in an opening round, and the next result he got was actually 12th. So that in itself is, to me, is wild how big of a change that. But then yeah, Bayer in the B with an X-ray, which is kind of twisted in a way where all the X-ray guys was the other way around, much better in four wheel. Boda, Landon, and these guys in the B. Then Ben Smith again in a B. A rough EOS for him, for Ben, not making it to the A. Um, and yeah, same thing for Pekka actually. I think he was in C in two-wheel drive and then B in four-wheel drive. So definitely maybe EOS or off-road right now is not the best for him because he's making the mains at the ETS side. Yeah.
I mean,
Um,
I mean, lovely guy, but he's so punched as a driver. Like, I
yeah.
don't know. I mean, I know you've probably seen him more than race than I have, but he looks so punched. I feel like he just took it down just a tiny bit he would be so much better.
Yeah, I think Joseph usually is mechanic when he goes to races, and like 90% of the time when Joseph says something, he says, "Calm down." So that is like what's happening here. Obviously, Jakey is not going to any of his 10 scale races. So, and touring car in a way is he's a weird driver that when he drives touring car, he's extremely nice to the car. He's extremely smooth. But then when he moves on to 10 scale, it's much more aggressive. So it's a very maybe it's jumps, maybe it's the fact that the car rolls more. I don't really know, but that is a weird thing about him that in touring he's extremely smooth. Um yeah, I don't have anything more to add from to qualifying. Big sort of lines here. X-ray really strong in full drive. S-Works really strong in full drive. The only guy able to perform in both classes was Michal Orlowski. I think like the versatility of this guy is insane. He's capable of being good in so many classes. Um like if he did like nitro off-road, he did that one worlds and he made it straight to the semi. But if he managed to get some good results like Bruno did in 8 scale off-road, I think like we could be talking about like GOAT status. Obviously, he needs to get like a world championship in other classes than Pancar, but the versatility of this guy is insane.
Oh yeah, I mean, for him to have now European Championships in on-road and off-road, also won ETS now for the second time as in the championship, and then he's
Yeah.
also won EOS. He's won multiple European Championships in both classes. Yeah, he's definitely like I think after Bruno, I think he's definitely like he's so versatile as a driver. I mean, yeah, I know he did win at e-buggy Euros. Am I right? I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and then he's done well in Nitro as well. So he's basically like another Bruno.
Yeah,
Yeah, basically another Bruno.
yeah.
To be fair to him, I mean, I feel like he's had a lot of bad luck at like the world on a worlds and European stage. I know like the two-wheel drive buggy is something he's been wanting to win for years, and he finally did it in Sweden last year. But I know like for years it was like something always happened. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think he's world championship material. Like, you know, I'm rooting for him to do it. Hopefully, like, at some point, I'm sure he'll do it. But I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously for Bruno to, I don't know, I've lost track of how many world championships he has now, and he's done it in
Yeah,
so many
it's
different
insane.
classes. Like, I mean, yeah, you can't really argue with Bruno. He's probably, I would probably say the Masami of our generation. I think it's safe to say.
Oh, yeah. Um, okay, let's move to the mains. In this one, it was so like cats out of the bag. Kilish won from fourth on the grid. How? Lots of things happened, but it was all of the mains from A1 to like A1 maybe wasn't that hectic because like Michal kind of took it from the line, but then A2, A3, a lot of random things happening, like and three different winners in the mains. So more definitely, I'd say more hectic than two wheel drive, and a lots of more shuffling around than two wheel drive.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think four-wheel drive was 100% more on the controversial side, especially that it kind of. I guess you could say the situation happened twice. I guess is probably
Yeah.
the nicest way you could put it. But yeah, I mean, A1 Michael, he was able to run away with it pretty clean and got it done pretty quick. And then A2 and A3, I'm not sure if you want to get the video up because
Yeah, we'll pull it
I
up
already
in
have an
a yeah,
opinion. Yeah, I already have an
yeah.
opinion on A2, but I kind of don't want to say it until I kind of. I don't want to say I don't doubt. I don't want to say I doubt myself, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna take a look at the video, what happened, just so we can analyze it a bit in A2 and then after that A3. But overall, though, I do want to say that like we talked about it over tool drive, but I think all that you know um impatience that you saw in two-wheel drive just gets even worse in four-wheel drive. And I don't know, because from what I heard from people who were at the event was that Ronnefalk knew that the only way for him to win was to do something like Marcus did with Michal, to absolutely bully him, to try to get him to a mistake. Was his intention to actually take him out in either A2 or A3? Probably not. But for sure, his impatience like got the best of him, and that like there was definitely a lack of respect in that sense for the guy in front. Sure, he
Yeah, I
paid
mean,
the
I'm
price for
actually,
it.
yeah, go
Yeah,
on.
yeah, sure, he paid the price for it. So and dropped down the list. But I think I spoke about this again with Jonah, but there was a lot of like impatience here too. Like you don't wait for the guy in front to make a mistake and then go for the gap. You just try to make a gap that isn't there. Um, and you could see this from many guys. Like I'm not saying Ronnefalk's the only one that done it, but like all of these guys here. Um, but we could move on to take a look at the A2 incident, which in my opinion actually this is not one that I have much issue with. I to be honest, I'm kind of siding more on the fact that it maybe more on Michal's side. Um, but let's take a look at this. Let me slow it down and put it up on the screen for you guys. So we have A2 start. It's right at the first double. Ronnefalk, I don't know if he sees Michal go wide or if he thinks he's gonna go for the gap in the inside. But a little gap opens up and Ronnefalk goes for it. And yeah, let's see what happens.
Yeah, I'm gonna let this play, and then we can
Yeah,
go into
I
it.
should have probably checked that how because I can't hear the timer, so I don't know how much it is until the start. Oh, it's so slow. Okay,
Oh, there we
here
go.
we are
Okay,
going.
so
So Michal
so
definitely
from
goes wide.
but I feel like okay, so I think I can see here that because people say Michael went wide on that corner, and I feel like while I kind of see where people are at, and maybe I'm just kind of maybe it's just my opinion, but I feel like especially in the first lap, it's kind of like you should always take it a bit easier. Like, and you shouldn't really
Yeah,
go for any silly moves. I mean, now that I've seen it here, I guess you could argue they were side to side, but I also you could argue that Michael was on the racing line, assuming that you were going to go wide and obviously cut in. Because if you, I mean, no one's going to give way in that situation. I mean, it is a tough one, but I also think this is the first lap, but you really should kind of just take it a step back. But I guess then it kind of comes back to the same situation with Marcus, where like you don't like everyone knows Michael's going to run away with it. It definitely isn't the way I would recommend to do it, but by any means. But I mean, kind of, I guess you kind of say here that Michael just landed a little bit off.
yeah. I think if you look at Michael's car from the first corner onwards, you do see a point where he's on the line here, right here. But when he gets over the hip jump, he cars skips a little bit because he goes onto the hip jump with the wheels turned, and his car points to the outside. So you remember that time when I was talking about you really want to square up to this place? This is exactly what happened here. He goes on a little bit of a offline and goes into this roller with his wheels turned. It bounces him up, throws him a bit wide, and that's why he goes into this double, and you can see his car. Like that's not how a car should look when you're trying to land it. He's pretty much like rear wheels landing first, whereas David behind him, he's squares up, stays to the inside pipe. Really, like you can see here, if I play it a little bit forward, how much further David actually lands here. Issue here, I think, is that David somewhat lands on Michal's car, and they already touch there. But if you look at this sort of view, they were side by side here when they landed, and the touch on the landing was very slight, to be honest. So I wouldn't say much about it. But this is the issue, that Michal lands on the center of the track, David lands on the inside of the track, but you can see the line. There's the marshal on the way, but you can see the line. The car, Michal's car, comes from here. They're right by the pipe at this point. And to be honest, I think this is 100% on Michal. He took a bad line. He went on the outside. Ronnefalk knew that he did not have the pace to win this final, and he took his chance. And sure, it didn't go the way he wanted, but it could have gone. And I think this is fair game. There's absolutely no issue about this, in my opinion. Sure, could you say he was a little bit impatient? Maybe, but he was in a situation where Michal would have ran away with it. He ran away with it in A1, so why wouldn't he have run away with it in A2 as well? So, in my opinion, A2, fair game. Like, that was on Michal, in 100% in my opinion.
I'm actually gonna disagree with you a little bit there, but I
Okay.
see where you're coming from, and it makes sense. Like, is why I'm like, okay, like, you have a point. And I guess in a sense, it was side by side. I guess the thing for me though is like from a reasonable line perspective, he wasn't like fully wide. It was on like what a reasonable. He was on the middle. He was on the middle of the track, and then David came right on the inside. And at some point, Michael would have to turn in. I guess you could argue Michael should have yielded, but I guess you could also argue it happened so quickly. Michael
Yeah.
still thinks he's in first, which I completely understand. So for him, like, he's obviously turned in, and I think like they both took a really tight entry into the corner, and obviously
Yeah.
inevitably they both kind of got into each other. I mean, it's weird because I don't think it kind of warrants a penalty, just because it kind of was side by side. But I also, if I was Michael, I'd be pissed, which obviously he was in this case, because in a way he kind of didn't do anything wrong. He was just taking the normal same line, like if he was in a qualifier. But uh, David was on the inside, and I think he kind of tested it a bit. And in the end, it kind of, I mean, I guess in the end, obviously David dropped down and Bartos got through. So
Yeah.
I mean, David obviously lost out and Michael did, but I mean, in my opinion, I think it was I guess, in my opinion, it was a takeout. But I mean, I guess, yeah, I could also see why someone else would see it as it was fair game because they were side by side. But that's just my opinion. But
Yeah.
I get your
I
side.
do. Yeah, I do agree with your point you made earlier on, that it's the first lap. So it's like, usually you take the first lap easy, especially on carpet, because if you try to overtake, you're gonna touch with the car in front, because that's how it is these days. Um, but then at the same time, like, I totally understand why Ronnefalk would go for it, because there was a gap. And like, if we watch A3, we're gonna watch A3 next. That gap doesn't exist there. There is no gap like that, and that is not because Michael shots it. He shots it too, but the gap doesn't exist because he gets a better exit of turn 2, uh, on the right hander after before the roller. And that to me, that kind of proves that Michael made a mistake. There was a room in the inside, and my kind of philosophy on what is side by side and what is not. As long as your front wheels are in front of the midpoint of the car that you're trying to overtake, then you're on the side. If your front wheel is just in front of the rear wheel of the car in front, you're still coming from behind. But as long as you are going into the braking zone so that you are in front of the middle point of the car that you're trying to pass, I think that counts as like, side by side. And the thing is that if you're making an overtake, you're always going to have to make it from the non-optimal racing line. If you do it on the outside, do the inside, wherever you do it, you're gonna have to take an alternative line. And that's why I don't think like there is this like if you're on the right line, you have the right of way. I think it's if you're on the side of the car, your front wheels, front axle is in front of the midpoint of the car you're trying to overtake, then you have to yield on the outside. Other way around, you have to yield on the inside. And I think that's kind of the sort of rule of thumb in racing scenarios. Now then again, would I give a penalty for Michael for this A2 incident? No, definitely not.
No,
Because
I don't think I would. It's
David
racing.
attacked there. He attacked that corner and he paid the price for it. But if it worked out, that would have been a perfect pass, but it didn't this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just my take. But I do, yeah, I in my opinion, like the biggest sort of point here would be that it's the first lap, and you're gonna hit the car in front if you do a pass like that. And I think that's sort of the biggest defense on Michel's side that and sort of against David there. But I think A3 is perhaps the one that I do understand Michal being more frustrated about. Um, if you want to add something about that A2, go ahead. But I'm gonna get up
No,
the A3.
yeah, just one last thing. I think also the other thing you have to remember is like it's easy to look at this in slow mo and say they were side by side, but when you look at it in full speed, how quickly like they get off the landing and go into that 180, it's probably like less than half a second. So it's easy
Oh,
to point fingers and blame who's who, but I think from Michael's side, you have to bear in mind he knows that he's landed and he still thinks in first. So in his eyes, he's like, well, he should yield. Who he's inside there
yeah,
because obviously, of course, what's going to happen there? He's on the inside, and realistically, you should yield. But I just think as well, it just happened so quickly. So it's so easy to point fingers on, oh, he should have done this, and they were side by side, and so on. But I think, I mean, I don't want to. I mean, I'll still stand by my my reasonings for it, well, my decision. But I also I think that's a fair point to add as well. But
yeah,
yeah, I think A2,
yeah.
I
Actually,
guess like
yeah,
you could call it like as you have basically like it kind of is what it is. I have my feeling on it, but yeah, I think I understand
yeah,
your side.
yeah. I do think that is a sort of point to consider too. I think that's a good the fact that how fast these things happen. Because, like, realistically, could you require Michal to realize that, okay, now we're side by side and I have to yield? No. And that's why I think the issue comes here is the fact that realistically, especially on the first lap, in carpet, how fast these cars are, and in four wheel drive, if you're David and you're trying to make that move, there's going to be contact. You know there's going to be at least some type of contact because there's just no time to react as 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 the car who's defending. So yeah, I do think that proves that you know that sort of little lack of respect that these guys have for Michal at this point because they know that if you rattle him enough, things are going to go bad. If you try to make a move, like maybe you get by him, and that's the only way to beat him. And like this race he really got the short end of the stick, and I think A3 is the biggest proof of that. And I'll bring that up right now. All right, let's go ahead and then take a look at this. So, actually, I'm gonna speed it up a little bit because it's not that fast. So we start out, and we'll take a quick look at the very beginning, just because I referenced this earlier on. Um, Here you can see how much better of a start. Like he's way ahead here, and you can see his car. He's way squared up to the inside, and much better line through there. David still does his same thing. He over jumps that jump, but he's a car length behind. And even if Michal was in the center part of the track, there was no way for him to pass him. Now comes the I'm gonna say like lack of respect for Michal and the, in my opinion, silly takeout. I mean David admitted to it, but yeah, Michal is a little bit on the wide here on the double. David comes way over speed and just straight up drives into Michal. No brake, no trying to avoid it, no nothing. That's a blatant takeout. But this is where Michal gets really shafted. So I'll rewind that back. So David takes Michal out. Michal still continues in the lead, but as he goes around the double on the right hand side, he gets obviously you're starting from 0 speed because you just got taken out. Gets a bad line, jumps to the outside. Zalewski's on the inside, and they touch wheel to wheel, but Michal's car gets flipped upside down. And Burak goes into the lead and holds the lead from Zalewski until the end and ends up winning. That's basically the storyline here. Um, but yeah, I think. What do you think, Will?
Yeah, I mean, this one I think it's a way more obvious. I mean, yeah, okay, you could argue Orlowski landed a little bit wide, but not wide and nowhere near wide enough to the point where I feel like you could justify an overtake there. So, because it's kind of like, and it kind of comes back to the first lap thing. Like, and I thought, especially after A2, where you kind of, that was already controversial as it was, go to A3, like the kind of the first thing last thing you want to do is kind of do the same. And like, obviously, it looked like he had no attempt to kind of break into that section. I think in his eyes, he was just trying to keep the speed going, but and maybe he saw the gap and thought, oh, I could like kind of punch it. But I mean, it was weird because you would land and get straight on the power. So I could kind of see why David kind of got on the power like he did. But I mean, yeah, like it was a bit. I definitely would say there was a lack of respect for Michael there through that section, like 100%. And then obviously Michael, you know, he's like he said, he's starting from 0. Like he now has to pack right next to him, so I can see why he kind of got a bit squirrely on with that double, and then kind of got shafted. To be fair, so I mean, if it was me, I definitely would have started that main way more easier. Like even when you see like not to pride our UK guys, but we see Lee and Neil, they would never do an overtake like that on the first lap. Like they would really like just they wouldn't go for it. That's like one of those moves that you kind of know you shouldn't really do. There was never a gap there, but I think obviously it comes back to like everyone knows that once Michael goes, he goes. That's definitely not the way to do it by any means, but I guess unfortunately that's just how it unfolded.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe now that X-Ray doesn't have Bruno anymore, um, someone else has to do the, let's say, dirty work. So, because this, like, I don't know if you ever remember the original CTO that Joseph talked about, but this is kind of that. This is just that you see the car in front get squirrely, and you do not give a shit what happens. You just drive your normal line, and then you're surprised that you touch. Sure, David owed up to it afterwards, and like I think he understands what happened here. So I'm not trying to like put him under the bus, but like when you look at this video specifically, that's exactly what happened here. The car in front gets a little bit squirrely, but you can't drive through them. That's just how it is. One thing I do want to touch on still is here. So there were people who told me that, oh, but he was still first after this. Like Michal was still first. Like whatever. Like he led,
Yeah,
and
for a
then
split second.
Zalewski like made a nice pass, and Michal got shafted. But let's like actually look at what happens here. So we all know the real line to this 180. You take all the way out here so you can square up to this double. Michal is all the way by the inside pipe. Even Zalewski here, he's way wider here. And even Borak, he obviously watches out for this guy. So Zalewski is squaring up for this double, whereas Michal is right by the pipe. And then, yeah, surprise, surprise, you have a chicane here. So you're going to get shafted through the chicane. And he's going to have to jump to the outside. That's the only way he's going to get by this jump. And sure, Zalewski sees his opportunity. He goes to the inside and they touch. And unfortunately for Michal, he gets the short end of the stick. Could he have done something differently here? Sure, he should have again yielded to Zalewski and followed him back on the left-hander, like followed behind him on the left-hander. But this whole debacle wouldn't have happened had David not taken Michal out. Michal would not have been on that line in any scenario unless he would have had to, start from zero and right next to the pipe. And then to Zalewski, should he have made this move? Maybe he saw his opportunity and took it. But like, I think this is just first we have this example of lack of respect from David. And then we have what I talked about, this impatience from Zalewski, not waiting for the car in front on what happens or going for the move as soon as it arrives. And then we end up having races like this. And yeah, that's the way I see this. If you look at these slow motions, you could say, like, again, yes, Michal could have yielded. But if he had not been taken out in the first place, he would not have been here. And I think that's the main takeaway from this, that these guys just the respect for the car in front doesn't exist. And I feel that's an issue. I feel some people might say, oh, well, then these races would be boring. But is it fun to have races where it's just a takeout every time? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, the thing is, I definitely think it's a bigger issue on the carpet style tracks where, I mean, especially EOS, where I mean, to be honest, it doesn't traditionally happen to Michael or even most guys, but I don't think definitely at this event. Well, I guess you could argue the CCO had happened in the past, but that is in the past now. But yeah, I mean, it just feels like everyone's just trying. I get that the competition's absolutely skyrocketed, and it is where it is. But it doesn't mean you can't just like you have to take every like minute opportunity in this case. Like, I mean, obviously Michael released a statement on how he felt afterwards, and obviously I completely understand him why he would be pissed off. Like, because it kind of like two wheel was kind of like it was fair, like what happened was kind of fair. It was a little bit controversial. I guess you could say a little bit controversial, or not the best way to do it, but it was fair. Like Marcus had more pace. To be fair, you could argue maybe Michael would have crashed later anyway because he would have been under pressure. But it is what it is. But then four wheel, for it to happen again, I guess, and I don't say again, but I guess you could say worse. Like, I don't blame him. And you have to remember as well, these guys, it's not just a case of they win and they go to home and sleep. It's their livelihood, and they get, there is money on the line, and I know that in some ways makes things worse, which is maybe why like these guys are like, hey, I'm just going to make the move, because if it means I'm going to win X amount from this race in contingency or prize money, then screw it, kind of thing. I don't think they're like for doing it in the moment, but I guess that's maybe subconsciously part of it, like where moves are getting more aggressive, and like I think we saw it at the divisions race where Ty and Mayfield got together.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know if
Few years
that's kind
back.
of part of. Yeah, I don't know if it's part of. I don't know if it's part of it, but I think it's a point to bring up. It is their livelihood, and Michael probably went from winning a pretty good paycheck to probably less now because of that. And it's not just a case that they got taken out; it's a money thing as well.
Yeah, and just for the people to, if you're interested, uh, RC Racing TV actually did. I don't know if this is interview with Michal. I have not had time to check it out, but Michal gave his side of the story. You can go check that out at RC Racing TV's channel. They've been doing some great content, by the way, recently. And I went out because I did give David a little bit of um negative feedback here. I do want to point his side of the story as well. Um, so let me pull that up. So we have David's report, and I'm going to read it here. So he writes, lots of drama on the track this time, but it happens in racing, and RC is no different. We are all here trying to win, and sometimes we can make mistakes. I don't have much to say about the start of A2. Michal left the door open over the big double, and I went for it as I didn't know if he was going to be able to pull away like in A1. Aggressive, yes, but the door was left open. We got together over the single jump as we dropped into 180, and I ended up on the roof and eventually came out dead last. Then about the A3, he writes, in the start of A3, Michal protected the inside well over the big double after what happened in A2. We got around the 180 and he jumps a little long as I nailed the landing, getting a better drive from it. I unfortunately misjudged the speed and ran into the back of his car. I had no intention to pass or take him out, but I make a mistake running into him. My car spun around and I lost 3 to 4 positions when it happened, while Michal was still in the lead going into the following corner and next jump. I understand he got out of his rhythm and got together with the others that next jump and fell back. Uh, like I said, I think, uh, like I said, these things happen easily in open wheel racing. I messed up in A3 and I'm sorry about that. But whining about the start of A2 and then saying that my goal in A3 was to take him out, come on. What attitude is that? No one is here trying to ruin anyone's race. And he ends his post with, "It's in the past, and we move on to the next for more exciting times." Um, so that was his side of the story. Uh, I think he's fair there. I don't necessarily disagree with what he wrote, but I do think Michael has the right to whine a bit because he pretty much got shafted out of 2 wins here. So he's understandably pissed. And yeah.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. I mean, David in that post, I think what he said was pretty much bang on, like from his side. Like, he said how it was, and obviously he said there that he made a mistake, and obviously, I don't think any of these guys were like, oh, I'm just gonna go into A3 and absolutely shaft this guy. Definitely don't think that is what it is. But I think, I mean, I know I've just been protecting Michael, but I think it also is the other way around as well. Like, I'm sure David gets prize money for if he wins or
Yeah.
whatever. And
Yeah.
is it a way to race? Absolutely not. But I mean, you gotta put them in their position. Like, if they see an opportunity, they might misjudge it, and it kind of loops around. I think to. I mean, I'm not even going to say that it links to carping how quick it is, because it happens in all classes. Like, it is what it is. But yeah, but I do definitely think Michael, especially after 2 wheel, Michael has every right to whine, I think. Well, be annoyed,
Yeah.
let's say.
Yeah.
I think especially after two-wheel, like, again, like in anything, you get annoyed once it happens, and it happens the second time. Of course you are. So I get it, to be honest.
Yeah. All right. Moving on from the incidents or incidents, as some of you F1 meme fans might know. The big storyline at the end of the day is Burak won. Burak Kilic won this year's EOS series and this round of EOS. He held back Bartek and Michal in A3, even though I'd say Michal was definitely the fastest guy here. Fastest in four-wheel drive. In two-wheel drive, yeah, I think Marcus was faster. In four-wheel drive, there was no question who was the fastest. It was Michal. But Burak held the win. Had the better time actually than Michal. I don't know if the track got faster or why, but he had the faster time in the end. And ended up beating Michal for the win. Zalewski finished in third with the A2 win and the fourth. And then David fourth. I guess it's a good result in the end if you think about it. But then again, from his standpoint, he's the third best X-ray. Maybe not the way you want to go home. Like, oh, how did he go? I was the third best X-ray. Definitely not what he wants to bring home. But fourth is not bad. Like fourth is okay considering that he's had a bit of a rough start to his 10 scale. Now that he's moved back to the 10 scale with X-ray. And then rounding out the top five, Marcus Carap, who started, I believe he started in 8th or 9th. He started in 8th. So 8th, from 8th to 5th, I think that's a great sort of comeback considering the mains. But still, I bet he would be hoping for more. But yeah, what do you think about our top five?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty interesting for sure. I think watching Marcus and that in the qualifiers, he definitely had the speed, but just had a ton of mistakes, which was unfortunate because
Yeah.
you could see in the finals, like when he got through, I don't want to say traffic because obviously he was stuck behind people, but like when he got through the pack, like I think in that A3, he was pretty much behind Michael by that point. So I think,
Yeah.
I'm trying to I have to think of the top five. I'll just get up really quick so I remember here. But yeah, obviously Burak to get the win with his Traxxas. I mean,
Yeah.
Mugen X-ray. It was a really cool moment to see him win because I think I definitely think it was pretty unexpected. If you would have asked me prior to the event just to see him win, like I honestly thought he was kidding in a bar. So to him to make it reality, fair play. And then Michael second, not really probably what he wanted, but it's still second. Like still like it's not like he finished last where you'd be like, oh, what's happened to Michael? No, he was still second. So he
Still
kind of
second.
salvaged that. And then Bartos in third. I think he's kind of, I don't want to say I'm surprised with it because I feel like especially with four-wheel, he's known to be really, really quick. So that kind of that's kind of there. David in fourth, I mean, it was a fairly, if he told me for the weekend he would be in fourth, I would say that was a pretty good result. And obviously the others, like Daniel, Mika, Ben, Tommy, and Jorn, like, there's pretty good results from those guys. Jorn obviously dropped down a little bit, but I think in general is I kind of the rest of that would
I
have
think
expected.
I think to be honest, like the only guys who are maybe a little bit disappointed with four wheel are Michal and David, and they're the second or fourth. Like most of these other guys, like Noah, both A mains, Tommy, both A mains, they're happy with that. Um, Maybe Jorn actually a bit disappointed after he had a pretty good qualifying in four wheel, but then all the way down 10th and Micha in 7th. But then again, like Jorn and Micha are guys they have won EOS rounds. They have won. Well, Jorn has won European Championships, so it's like, do you really care if you're 7th or 8th at the EOS? No, not necessarily. So probably not too disappointing for these guys. Um, One thing I do want to say though, that Burak Kilic has won 2 EOS rounds this year. Obviously, that means that he also won an EOS championship. And when has this guy even a tiny bit been profiled as a 10 scale guy? Like never. Whereas like even Ongaro, like if you think Ongaro, like he won his first tool drive European Championship in Italy like 2017. So and then obviously now the worlds in America, but like Ongaro has been running 10 scale for a long time. Whereas Burak is kind of like he seems to be doing it like one race here and there. No it's not like Ongaro where he's going to the worlds. It's like he might come to some race randomly, but in Germany, and then he comes and wins it. So I think that is very impressive, and I think for Mugen it's a little bit of a, in a sense, maybe a lost opportunity that like you have this talent who can be really capable in 10 scale, and you can't really do much with him. Now,
Yeah,
obviously,
but
they have the dual drive.
I guess for Mugen, it's like they have just come into an attempt scale game. So I mean, I mean, I'm sure like it takes from the ground up takes forever to build not only a two wheel but four wheel. But I mean, obviously, I guess it kind of comes into the winners and losers. But I mean, I guess obviously we'll finish with the winners first, and then obviously we'll go into the losers. So yeah, I guess obviously for sure, X-Ray XB4 in terms of car, absolute winner here. I mean, if you take Michael out, you know, the top 5 was basically X-Ray. So that shows I think the car is still really competitive because I think last year the EOS there was only one X-Ray in the A final. So now that the top 5 are basically let's say top 4, there's 3 X-Rays in there. I think that kind of shows that whenever like someone's whenever we feel like our car's going a little bit on the slower side, it looks like the X-ray guys are always kind of continuing with that. And obviously, like we spoke about earlier, the B7. I know I'm biased here, and I'll probably let uh, Max have a second on this as well. But I think definitely the B7 platform is starting to really gain some speed here. So obviously, top 5 got a lot of the can't even talk here. 5 AE cars in the A final. I mean, it's really good. I think they show that Boda just came out of nowhere, and to do that is pretty well. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. And just in general, it's just about Associated.
Um, I don't know. The thing about Associated to me is that it seems like on the European side, every single one I've talked to, especially on EOS carpet, they've been like, "Oh, the B7 is so great." It's like they've like it's amazing. Like be it Jona, be it London, all of these guys are like, "Wow, this car is great." But then when you look at any like Mimo buggy has been incredibly savage on the B7 platform, for example. But even if you talk like guys who run locally, they're like, "Oh, all of my guys hate the B7. Like, we need a B7.1 immediately." And then from Australia, we heard their stuff that a lot of these guys are transitioning back to B6.4. So I think like you make a car that's really low center of gravity, sort of on-road esque, and it works on carpet. Yeah, it makes sense. But maybe I mean I would have assumed it works on dirt because like that's what the Americans run on. So I don't know. It's a weird combination because I feel like the Europeans absolutely love it, and the Americans are like, no. Obviously, some Europeans perhaps um think that maybe the B6 was better. I mean, it's a more established platform, but I don't know. So far, if you look at EOS, the B7's been the best car, best tool drive car out there. So yeah, obviously, still in terms of winners, uh, Schumacher overall, maybe thanks to Michael, but sure, Daniel is there. Know-how is there. So they are doing good on both platforms, and I think that's something that probably makes them one of the biggest winners that they have 2 competitive cars. Whereas looking at the results, X-Ray struggles with the tool drive, at least on this race. And then similar story with S-Works, obviously. And then associated tool drive is great, but maybe they struggle with their 4-wheel, because if we look at our losers list, it's like there's B74 platform, and we have with X-Ray tool drive and S-Works tool drive. And I think out of this weekend, if we look at all these brands and we say who's the sort of biggest loser in terms of brands from that this week it happened, what do they lose the most? It's definitely Mugen. You have a guy who's your top guy in the world, Burak Ilic, drives your tool drive, makes it into the B main, picks up a privateer 4-wheel drive, obviously from a competing manufacturer, and wins the race. Like, that's the worst thing that you as a company kind of wish that would happen. And like the thing is, everybody knows it was an X-Ray. And even if it wasn't, still it looks bad, because your guy is driving your tool drive, which is supposed to be like the next best thing. You're trying to replace TLR and whatever like these big goals are, and your guy makes it to the B and then he wins 4-wheel drive. So everybody's gonna look like, is it that Burak is a really great 4-wheel drive driver, and or is it that the Mugen tool drive sucks? And probably that Burak is so much better in 4-wheel drive than 2-wheel drive because he's always driven 4-wheel drive cars. That's the most likely explanation. But like, you'll never know. Like, we'll never know. Like, what if he had a B7? Like, could he been better in 2-wheel drive? Maybe. Who knows? But still, the question is there, and that's maybe the reason why I'd put Mugen as the biggest loser of the brands at this EOS.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. But I mean, it's a hard one for them because they're obviously still developing a platform. But I mean, they have a 2-wheel though, which I mean, it's still in the B main. And I guess you could argue it leaps back to just how competitive EOS was. But because Burak, to be
True.
fair, did make the EOS A main last year. But I mean,
He
yeah,
did.
it does look. I guess you could say it does look a little bit bad, but and no fault at Burak or Mugen, because Mugen has obviously said, "Hey, listen, just for now, like maybe Mugen just assumed that he wasn't going to win the EOS like that," which is, I mean, it's a fair assumption. Like, so I think for them, like it was very unexpected that, but then like you
Oh,
say, like
yeah.
I mean, it's a bit different because I think if Mugen had essentially a 4-wheel and then Burak won with it, it would be a bit like, okay, the Mugen is blah blah blah. But I think because Mugen haven't got a 4-wheel yet, it could also be a good thing for them, because it might be like, okay, maybe this means we just have to kind of see what the X-Ray is, why X-Ray is so good, and kind of see if we can incorporate into our platform. So while maybe short term it's a bad thing, you can maybe say in the long term it could be a blessing in disguise. But I mean, we
Yeah.
to be honest, we all know the X-Ray is probably one of the better 4-wheels anyway,
Yeah.
so it's not really any surprise.
Yeah. Before we move on to the winners and loser of the drivers, I kind of forgot, but this section of the podcast, the winners and losers of our race, is brought to you by Clinic RC. So I'm gonna play a little ad of their Race Tech engine line. Um, they're quality engines at a decent price, and I have one at my hands here in my home, and I'm very impressed of the cooling head because it's significantly lighter weight than other brands, and they do actually make a cooling head for that you can install in your OS engine. But be sure to check out their Racing engines as well as all their kits, kit parts from Clinic RC. I absolutely love their titanium stuff. One of the best in the industry for sure. But here is that very soothing ad from Racetech. All right. We have Will right here back in time for our continuation. So we're nearing the end of the podcast here. We've been going for quite a while again.
Yeah,
We said
quite
we
a
wasn't
bit.
gonna go long, but we're here. So we're gonna end. We did not actually have, because I got reminded because you said medium, but I think the great thing for from this race was no manufacturer was medium. Everybody was either a winner or a loser. So we got that. We got that. But from drivers, I think there was a few mediums. But before that, we go through the winners. And the obvious ones, the real winners of the race, Burak and Marcus, both had a great, both won a race. Um, Marcus tool drive, really spectacular way. I think that was a fighting win. Burak in four wheel drive. Yes, he got a bit lucky. Yes, it was a surprise, but he still kept the lead, won it, had a better time than Mikhail too. So, um, totally deserved win. Bartek, uh, definitely a win. Being able to be at this level continuously for this long, uh, shows that he does have a future. Potentially as a pro one day. Um, Tommy Hall, uh, both A mains, solid. Similar story with Clement Boda. Oh, sorry. Similar story with Nohab and Mohammed, but we also have Clement Boda here in our winners list. Because sure, he didn't make the main in four-wheel drive, but being a name we're mentioning on this podcast on multiple occasions, that hasn't really been the case with him when he was running S Works. And I'm really happy to see that because he was one of those guys we always looked up to become like the big name out of France. And sure, Nohab bin Mohammed has been kind of the one that took that like staple again, but Clement, I think, is back on the right track now to do that. Looking at the list of drivers, I don't know if we have anything. Maybe we could add Kobevic to the winners list. I think at the end of the day, he did have a pretty good weekend. Um, but I think that is kind of our winners list here. Do you think we have anyone to add there? Can you come up with someone?
No, I think that's a pretty good list. I mean, yeah, I think we can just leave it at that, to be fair. There's no one else I can really think of at the moment. Maybe there is someone else, but if I miss out, my bad.
Yeah. Um, to the losers list. Um, I don't. Okay, I don't know. Maybe this guy thinks that whatever, like he doesn't really care about his results anymore. Maybe I don't know. Uh, but Lee Martin, the guy who's a EOS champion, European champion, the guy with like he was always the number one guy. Like Michal was the challenger back then, and Lee was the one who always came out on top. Um, and he's buried deep in the B main in both classes. Um, yeah, I don't know what to think of this because like surely Lee has progressed past his prime of his career, and he definitely has other things in his mind than being a really fast RC driver. Um, but still, I mean, it must be at least a little bit like humbling for him, and to me, it's kind of like okay, like this is really it for him, maybe. Sure, like you said, I don't know if you said this earlier in the podcast or before we actually started it, but you said that maybe it will just take time for him to get used to X-ray and that maybe he wasn't as comfortable with the Schumacher. That could be the case, but still, I don't know. I don't know. He did have a few good rounds, so I'll give him that. I'll give him that much.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I think because I've seen him race a lot more, like in the UK and so on. I think it's just going to take him time to get his mojo back. To be fair, I mean, truthfully, I don't know if he'll be at the same way he was, and that's me just from my opinion. But I think it is like, I just don't think I think the Schumacher stuff wasn't probably for him, like, for his kind of driving and so on. So where, like, he was a Schumacher, I think he struggled a fair bit, and now he's kinda got a car that, I guess you could say kinda suits his driving style a bit more. I think it's just gonna take him a bit of time, like, to rebuild that confidence. I think it's probably the main thing. But, I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say, like, he might be a bit past his prime. I mean, by all means, I really hope he makes a comeback, but, I mean, I think that's a fair assumption to make.
Yeah. And then the other name on our losers list. Now that I think about this, maybe he doesn't really belong here. He did have a good four-wheel drive, but I'll still put him here, and that's David Ronnefalk. Why do I put him here? Because yes, he finished fourth, um, but he was the third best X-ray in four-wheel drive.
You're really
He was
holding him to that.
no, but like if we really think about this, like he was ninth in two-wheel drive or eighth, can't remember, eighth or ninth, ninth because he was there in the back with Bayer. Ninth in two-wheel drive, um, and then he's third best X-ray in four-wheel drive. And okay, fourth is not bad. It's competitive field. Sure, two-wheel drive, maybe they couldn't hit the setup. Okay, but the thing is, he really hasn't been strong in 10 scale since he got back to 10 scale. Um, and on top of that, he is right now the sort of uh what you call it, the diamond on top of the diamond of the ring for X-ray. He is their number one driver when it comes to like Europe, at least. Sure, maybe in 6 months that will be fun, but if we consider usually Hoodie keeps their European drivers as like close to them, and David's supposed to be that guy who's like the number one guy at X-ray, you know? Like Bruno was. He was always the top guy, beat any class, really. And this is definitely not enough from David to be that guy. And yes, there was glimpses of that in four wheel, and I think it had he finished even second, maybe that could have turned it around for him. But definitely, like had he finished as the best X-ray behind Michal, that would have looked a lot better than finishing just two places down, but behind, two other X-rays as well. And especially a guy who runs it as a privateer, like, oh no, like, oh, like why? Like if you're a chassis manufacturer and you're like, should I hire that guy or should I hire those two kids who don't cost me almost anything that are in front of you? Like, I think that's why he's ultimately on this list. Granted, like it's not over. He still made both mains. He was consistent. Um, and he definitely has more to offer to X-Ray, and he's definitely going to be one of the favorites at the Worlds at the end of the year. There's no doubt about it. Um, like at least going in, he's gonna be in the talks of can he win a world champion because he has doubled at the European Championships on very slippery dirt when he was running hot bodies. He has that capability, but like if we look at this result in a vacuum, ultimately I'd say he goes down to the loser of this weekend list. Unfortunately, even though like it's a good result, like for anyone else that we've talked about, this would be a good result. But like we do have to hold David to a higher standard because he is the most established driver of this race. Like even Michael, he's getting close, he's getting there, but I'd say David has still won the most of all these guys. So
Yeah,
That's why it's
I
there.
think that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you wanna? I think I sense that you're not the type of guy to go as deep into the losers list. But do you have anything to add on, David, or do we move
No, I
on to
think,
mediums?
I mean, I personally wouldn't put him as a loser. I think it kind of, I'd probably say he's more in the middle, like probably medium, where like he had great success, but I think he just made a few, let's say, let's just say small errors that kind of ended up being a bigger thing. Because you make it sound like him being fourth is like, oh, he's like nowhere, but in actuality, like it's still a top five,
Yeah,
and
I
his
know, but
carpet isn't really his thing anyway. So that's what I'm kind of like.
yeah,
That's why I'm like, I don't know, but yeah, I think we can leave the losers as that, to be fair, for now.
yeah, yeah. I was a little bit laughing because you said he had great success, and I was immediately thinking of Borat before saying great success. You
Great
know that.
success.
Yeah. Going through our medium list, we have Jorn and Micha. These two, they pit together. They speak German together in the pits. I don't even know what these guys do. They just go to races, rent their cars, and go drive, and then laugh at. Like, but then sometimes they're right there in the top, like in full drive, there's in the main, and then sometimes they're in the B. So like, what's going on with these two guys? Like, I don't know. I'm a bit lost with these two, and this race it was a medium run for them. Really poor two-wheel drive and a decent four-wheel drive. Definitely not losers. Um, Definitely not winners either. But you still have to put them somewhere because it's weird. Like how these two bottom of B and then they're in the middle of A. I don't know. It's weird. And these two are like always really closely matched. They're right behind each other. So it's a weird
Yeah,
pairing.
it is a weird pairing. I mean, Mika, I kind of understand because he's like, I mean, he's definitely made a name for himself. But
Yeah.
I feel like in the last two, not taking anything away from him, but just he hasn't, been like a Michael level. I mean, yes, he's being Michael at EOS, but he just hasn't really had anything top level. And then Yorn, I guess, is kind of similar to Lee in a way, where he hasn't really had anything extraordinary in the last few years. But I mean, I know S-Works are still developing that platform, so I don't know, like, if that's why they still. I mean, I'm not saying that they should get rid of them by any means because they're still both very capable drivers, and they're still showing that this weekend. But it does kind of make you think, like, well, like, like you said, like they just travel everywhere together racing. But I guess it's not always about the big events as well. It is a big part of it, but I guess it's also what they do off the track and getting that car as good as they can, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And to my knowledge, both of them also work really closely with S Works in the non-racing side of it. So like the business side of it, the things, especially Micha, he works really a lot there. So like these two are kind of the guys that don't only race but do other things as well. So I'll give them like a little bit more like slack than some of the others who I know for a fact just race. Um, and then that one guy here in the medium list has to be Yona. He could almost go into the loser list, but then again, I think he just had a rough weekend. I think it wasn't like oh my god, what's happening with this guy? It was kind of like okay, like yeah, great qualifiers in both classes. He had great speed in both classes, but this just wasn't his weekend. He wasn't extremely bad. He definitely wasn't extremely good, but he was like eh, things didn't go his way, maybe. So that's why he's in medium, and that's why like I mentioned him here because there was more for him to offer. And then again, like I think he did deserve more already with what he had, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I mean, he did have a pretty. I mean, he obviously had pace in two wheel, like with that two, and you think he said he got a three and four wheel as well. So, but I think we just put it down as bad luck. Unfortunately, I mean, these EOSs are getting competitive every time. So there's only so many guys that can make the A final, and I mean, he was BQ even in the B finals. He was still making some mistakes. So, I guess you just call it it's just one of them.
Yeah. All right. Is that everything from EOS? Are we done with EOS?
We have done 2.5 hours on it. So I think
Okay.
that has to be it.
Yeah.
There's no way anyone's still listening.
I hope there are. If there are, leave a comment that I'll need to use a word. What is this? It's like a orange with the red stuff inside. Blood orange. So type a comment called blood orange if you're listening. That we know someone actually listened this far. Okay. EOS one race series. So not the series. Congrats to Marcus and Burak. And yeah, it's 15 to 3 a.m. here, so we better wrap this up. But there's a few things to go by. One thing to go by is that even though the EOS is over, there's going to be races happening, and next section is going to be about the upcoming races we're having, and that section is brought to you by Sidewinder Fuels. So Sidewinder Fuels and Morgan Fuel has been collaborating with many of the world's top drivers for over 35 years. This has enabled us to test our fuels in many of the most challenging situations and take the development of competition fuels to the next level. The result is Sidewinder, the market's most powerful racing fuel. This fuel is tracks tested and proven by national and world champions, including Ryan Calleri, Ryan Mayfield, Greg Degani, Mark Pavidis, and most recently, P. Long Nyan. These drivers appreciated that Sidewinders is blended perfectly for the high performance needs of competitive racing. Don't let victory slip through your fingers. Purchase Sidewinder today. Thank you to Sidewinder for bringing us the upcoming races segment where we go through a few of the races that are going to be happening here soon. Um, this weekend or next weekend or previous weekend, I don't know when this podcast is going to be released. INS round one, at Trackside Hobbies. Then similar thing with Montpellier happening this weekend. Gonna rain. Looks like it's raining a lot. Looks like it's probably gonna get cancelled after practice or first qualifiers. Unlucky, but Montpellier's happening. Then the week after that, February 14 to 16, MKGP. Um, what is the surface with MKGP now? Has it been decided?
Yeah, so they've already for the guys that went there before, it's basically the same type of carpet, but it's supposedly a shorter pile. But I have some friends that had a club night there yesterday, and apparently it's quite a bit different. So the initial feedback is it's very, very loose, like your rear end is kind of coming out loose. So, but when we did the MKGP 2 years ago, and they had the carpet, then it was very loose for the first 2-3 rounds, I think, and then the grip came up. So we're kind of a bit unsure if it's going to do the same or not. Like,
Yeah.
I'm only saying this from what I've been told, so it's going to be a bit interesting. It's basically like office carpet essentially with the loops. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting
Are
to see.
we are we
Yeah, go on.
talking like dirt loose, or are we talking like slicks on dirt loose, or are we talking like this carpet is a little bit loose, like
No,
old,
no, with
like that old EOS, like before we had a EOS carpet, just like standard, like
primer
I don't know
felt.
what you call it. Yeah, primer felt.
Yeah, it's like less drivable than that at the moment. Is what I'm
Okay,
hearing. Like, there's no side bite. There's great drive, but no side bite. But I mean,
okay,
this is
that is cactus
yeah,
too. So
yeah, yeah. So that's why I'm a bit interesting. But then again, it might be the same thing as the years previous, where like it just comes in and the carpet's really good. Like so, but that's and that's next weekend, MK. So a week, yeah, pretty much
Yeah.
next week.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I'd expect Mikhail to come, but I'd expect pretty much all the top Europeans to go.
Mikhail's actually going to TICC.
Oh yeah, that's the same weekend. Okay, so we're probably missing him, but I think he's probably the only one who does touring cars as well, unless Ronnefalk is going, which I doubt. But I wouldn't think he's going to TITC. But yeah, most likely most of the top guys are going to be there as usual. Um, yeah, and then the FTC race in Nitro Compound. The week after that, February 21st to 23rd. Then week after that, Desert Classic. This is one of the bigger 10 scale races again in America. February 26th to March 2nd in Palm Desert Raceview, Arizona. And the big one, the big A scale race, the next big A scale race after Montpellier. The next big A scale race in America, March 5th to 9th, the Dirt Nitro Challenge. Exactly a month from now. And the big one, I'd say. And before that, I think the FTC race is going to be perhaps the biggest race in America, and should be at least the usual names: Mayfield, maybe Fuller. He's been at this race for quite a while. Maricopa, Nitro Compound in Arizona, I believe it's Arizona. Arizona, Maricopa, Arizona, and close to Phoenix. That race, that's going to be one to watch out for the 8 scale fans, and Desert Classic and MKGP definitely the ones for 10 scale fans. And INS and Montpellier probably have happened already when these podcasts come out. So yeah. All right. That is it for that. I do want to close this out with something that I did hear, a gossip, before we go fully off, so we have a sort of a soft landing out of this podcast. So some people may remember this. We talked about this pretty much exactly a year ago when EOS at Daun was happening. And this is 3rd of February last year, so exactly a year ago. And this is the MRO. Let me go full screen. So the MRO Inspire 4-wheel drive buggy. And it's been a bit silent. I do have to say, it's been a bit silent for a year now. But I did hear an inside scoop from the, I guess I call him owner of this brand, that they have some exciting news coming up in 2 weeks. To my understanding, they have created something new for the car. They are going to come out with new pictures in the following weeks. I'm showing, this is the fella here, Yavuz, and uh the reason why I'm showing you guys this is because a lot of people probably have missed it. And pretty much the car is a totally different design. So instead of having conventional shock towers, you have cantilever shocks that are attached within the chassis. So it's an extremely low center of gravity chassis. Uh, Definitely not the first brand to ever do this, but at the same time, it is one of the most interesting looking ones, and definitely one of the most outside of the box off-road cars currently looking to go into the market. And the big news is also that they have already hired a new designer, assigned a new designer. I, to my understanding, they still have their old designer, but they're just having another person here to help with the project to develop the car further. and that's going to be announced in the next 2 weeks. So I got a little teaser from them, in this sense that there's something more to expect. Um, to be honest, I was expecting kind of see something at the EOS, but we'll hear something more. I don't know if we ever got to talk about this chassis with you, Will, but what do you think about it as a 10 scale uh, geek or a 10 scale enthusiast?
I mean, it's definitely an interesting concept. I hope I'm right with this, but from what I understand, there was a guy in the UK called David O'Bell, who initially designed
Yeah.
this, and if I'm correct, uh, I can't pronounce his name. Yabez, is it? Yabez or something like that. The guy you just
Uh,
mentioned,
yeah.
to my understanding, he bought the design, and then now this is turning into this. I think I heard from a few people in their opinion, they think it's just like a car's gonna be just made for like one type of track. Like, it would be amazing at one track, but I don't know how well it would translate to other tracks. But it's definitely really it's definitely a cool concept. I think if I've never there's like I would hate to build a car because there's literally like 10 turnbuckles to make instead of 6. I hate making turnbuckles, but I guess that's more of a actually no, it's a steering link, so I guess that's more of a minor inconvenience than anything. But but yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I'm sure they'll beef up the arms and make it stronger, but I don't it'll be curious to see if it's something that'll go into mainstream production or if it kind of just be something that would be more of a collector's item maybe.
Yeah, and that's kind of the interesting part about this because from what I feel and what I kind of sense with my spidey senses is that this is actually probably going to happen. Like it seems like it's finally going to happen. Um, like maybe not right now, but it's been taken so far that I think is going to happen, and I think the signings they have made it is that it's going to happen, and I'm very interested to see how this would handle on a capable person's hands against competition. Because that is the thing with new concepts. Like for example, the Agama. When they came out with the N1 for off road, yeah, it looked cool. Yeah, they said it's good and whatever. But then nobody has actually been able to get anything done with it, you know? And I think that's why at the end of the day, the concept has probably gotten a bit stuck because now they have to change something so radically about it because like they already released it and they said this is ready now and they are not having the results they want. And then sure, maybe locally in the UK it could be different because you have such a large community, but around Europe, pe- yeah, like it's not happening right now, and it's tough because that was the beginning of automatics. They had that shaft-driven car, and that was the beginning of that. Automatic was the same. So sure, maybe Agama um, can fix that, but I think there are fundamental issues with the Agama, and I think there are fundamental issues with this car as well. And at the end of the day, it's a question of how well can you avoid those fundamental issues, and how well can you protect the car from those actually causing you any issues. And yeah, automatics is a great example of that in on road, how they overcame those and made it actually great. And then everyone else had to adapt and very heavily adapt. And now they've caught up again. Um, and that's going to be the thing with any project that goes from outside the box. Yeah, the Agama has the 10 scale car as well. I haven't seen it run anywhere or had any results from anywhere. So I obviously don't know how it performs, but to me, it still has same fundamental issues as the N1, so I don't see how it would better, and it actually has some disadvantages compared to other cars. So I don't know if that's the route I would go with. The MRO is a route that hasn't been explored, and I haven't seen it explored in modern times. So I'm maybe more interested in it than the Agama, because I feel like uh, things need to really change with the Agama before it gets into the talks. But this one is, it's like if you can make this even remotely work, it is already interesting. So that's why I think it's a worth talking about the MRO. And I mean, the potential here is huge. I think, like, no matter how you put it, the potential here is huge for cantilever shocks to become a thing in off road as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, luckily, a buddy of mine, he's kind of helping out big time with the N110, I think it is. So, I mean, they haven't done any public running. I know they've done some initial tests and they have some promising results. But I mean, until we see it, I kind of agree with you. Like, it's curious to see how it goes. I mean, the Scale platform seems okay, but I think like even for Garmin, they haven't got like a top guy, so it's kind of hard to see if the cantilever style cars will kind of take off or if it's just kind of a fad.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the MRO car has a lot of potential for sure. Um, but then again, like it's unless you actually study the shock geometry, measure everything, make sure it handles similar to the cars we are right now. It's a long road. It's a long and rocky road to make the suspension work as you wish. Um, but yeah, from my information, they're going to be coming up with some exciting new stuff. So I'm excited to see it, and we probably, hopefully, they're already online before we come on the podcast next time. So we have a little bit of a preparement for next time, so our listeners can, or maybe viewers more, because you can see the pictures, but you guys can compare it for what we had last year. Okay, we've gone for 3 hours and 40 minutes, and I think we're done. I think we're done.
Yeah, I really need to pee. So
With Keenan, I mean, obviously none of our viewers hear this stuff, but with Keenan, he pauses it like every 45 minutes and goes to pee. He's an old man after all, and so we take a pee break like more than once an hour with Keenan. So that's our little secret that we don't do. We're young, so we can actually hold our pee for three and a, three
kind of
and a half hours.
like a camel can hold it.
Okay. But before we end it, we're gonna give one more thanks to our sponsors. This show again is brought to you by J Concepts. Big thanks to them for being the main sponsor. Um, Thanks to our premium sponsors as well: Hightech RC, Sidewinder Fuels, Latera Racing, Invisible Speed, ML Toys, and Side Piece Racing. And thanks as well to our other sponsors: Hot Race Tires, Elite RC Productions, RC Project, Mayako, Techno RC, Beach RC, Racecar USA, and Clinic RC. Shout out to our drivers: Ronnefalk, Battier, Hagberg, Matty G, Pekka and Yona, and Mason Fuller. And as always, thank you to our NNRC squad, our patrons, our YouTube members, um, anyone who's ever given us a super chat, and people who share our stuff on social media. That helps too. If you're a subscriber, and more importantly, if you're not a subscriber, why the hell aren't you not? Okay. But if you're a subscriber, thank you. You're part of the squad. And leave a like, subscribe, comment, share to your mom, tell your sister you watch this stuff. Um, Feed us to your dog. put your kid to watch the podcast. We don't swear much here, I don't think. With Kieran, we swear more.
I think we kept it pretty PG this one.
Yeah. So let your kids watch us. What else? Put your grandma to watch us. Grandmas love young boys. And yeah. I don't know.
Right, let's wrap it up.
This was it. I'm almost falling asleep already because it's over now. I don't have the show making thing on anymore. Thank you everyone for listening for 3 hours and 45 minutes, or I don't know how long this has gone. And thank you, Will, for your time. And we'll catch you guys in the next one.
Yeah, we'll catch you in the next one.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.